And today is Wednesday, the 12th of June, 2024. Although Commissioner Franklin isn't here yet, he intends to be here momentarily. I'm going to call this meeting to order and make a roll call. Kalina Vendetti, that's me, I'm here. Jim Franklin, not here yet. Dot McFarland?
Yes.
And Megan?
Yes.
And Buzz Artiano?
Yes.
And Marilyn Cozadoy?
Here.
Thank you. And Brian Payne?
Here.
Thank you. Please note that we're doing a hybrid meeting with both in-person and virtual attendance. So if a member of the virtual audience would like to make comments during a public hearing, just use the raised hand function on Zoom and you'll be assigned to speaking time. If you're listening in via telephone dial-in, press star 9 to raise your hand and then press star 6 to unmute yourself. This meeting's being recorded by the local scene and we thank them very much for their service. And a record of this meeting will be posted on the local scene website as soon as they're able. Anyone intending to make an audio or a video recording of this meeting should notify me at this time. Okay. I'd like to bring your attention to general meeting sequence and rules. These are the guidelines for conducting a meeting such as this. I ask you to look them over and to follow the guidance that you will find on that page. The first order of business is the signing of documents. Did we just do that?
You did. I can just run through really quick.
Okay.
We had, if anybody has any questions about any specifics, let me know, but we had invoices from environmental partners for MS4 support. We had Beals and Thomas invoice for Sampson's Brook Headwaters Restoration Project. We had Lowe's for trail maintenance equipment that was previously signed by the commission. Forestry suppliers for trail maintenance equipment previously signed. Amazon Business for office equipment and other supplies previously signed. LEC Environmental Consultants for a wetland delineation on West Street previously signed. There is the ratification of the enforcement order for 2 Braintree Avenue that was already issued by myself. Amazon Business for trail monitoring equipment. Pear Corporation for the Reed Mill Pond Dam inspection. Wildlands Trust for GIS parcel assessment for the Coastal Habitat and Water Quality Grant from FY24. Beals and Thomas for the Sampson's Brook project. Kingston Landscaping LLC for field trail mowing at Callista Farm. And integrated weed control for Gallericella beetles for purple loosestrife control at Bay Farm.
All right, thank you very much. And we have the action items. I'm going to call, well, is it too soon to open the public meeting on this?
We can just go to the RDAs.
Okay. I'm going to open the public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability, it's called an RDA, for 19 Kingston Street for the proposed roof overhang extension off of an existing single-family dwelling within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. Do you have any comments, Matt, or would you want to hear from the representative first?
Pretty much, I think the representative, because we discussed this at the last meeting and the commission had questions for the applicant and the applicants were not here and the representative was not able to answer the questions. Okay. So you have requested that the general contractor or owner of the company be here to speak tonight. They confirmed, at least one of them confirmed that they would be, and then we also had an enforcement issue on the property to deal with later. The commission can always choose to take that out of order if they want to.
Okay. So the representative is here. When you get to the podium, please identify yourself for the record.
So my name is Rob Carlson from Grady Consulting. I was on.
You're going to have to turn that mic on.
Oh, will you flick on that microphone? There's a little button on the bottom there. Do you see it?
Yep.
Thank you.
How's that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So my name is Rob Carlazon from Grady Consulting. I did sort of present the plan virtually last time, so I'm just here tonight. So as you probably remember, this is just for a proposed roof overhang off the back right corner of the house. I know there were some questions that I did not know the answers to at the last hearing. I know one of them was that the roof overhang was already built prior to us getting approval from the commission. And I talked to Mike the builder. It was just an oversight. It was on the architectural plans, and the framers built it before he could stop them. So he's aware that that was a violation. We had a couple of things. So there was, if I recall correctly, there was issues with the catch basin and the street overflowing. So I know I've been working with Kevin and Mike, and I believe Matt has been involved with installing some stone drainage trenches along the edge of the road to help catch any flooding stormwater on the street, to take it off the street and away from the catch basin, as well as silt socks to sort of help mitigate that. And another one that I noted was the sump pump line. So the plan, we're still working on that part of it. We are working with Mike. The plan is to temporarily have the sump pump drain into the existing dry wells with the roof drains. And the plan is to eventually install the foundation drain outlet on the approved plans out in the backyard. So he is looking to try to get that the site work going soon outside of the house to get all of that squared away. And I'm not sure if there's any other things to address or questions.
Well, let's hear from the agent. Are there other questions or issues to address?
Sort of want to hear from the commission how they want to deal with this, because there's two different things. We have strictly the RDA for what they're asking, which is the overhang off the back of the house, and then we have enforcement related to site conditions. And so part of what was just said was correct, but related to that enforcement issue. The real issue from that site visit for the RDA was the lack of a filter fabric. It had been pulled out. So that was quickly dealt with. I did let the contractor know that they should be here tonight to deal with an enforcement issue and that they should put the filter fabric in right away, which they did. Since then, we've been dealing with that back and forth. But I'm just interested to hear how the commission wants to deal with this. Do you strictly want to deal just with the RDA alone right now on its own merits for what's proposed before you and deal with the enforcement afterwards, which I think would be more appropriate? Or do you want to deal with everything all at one? Because when somebody comes back asking for a modification of a permit, project performance is part of that.
Let's hear from the commission on that. Anyone?
Can I ask a question first?
Yes, please.
So it also shows a proposed barn. Is that not part of the IDA anymore?
That was a concept. When Rob first reached out, he said the person who was buying the property wanted to do a overhang and a barn. And my advice was that it wouldn't really fit an amendment and that they may have a difficult time permitting a barn back there. So what they came back with was an RDA filing strictly for the overhang.
Okay, so even though this shows on the plan it's not proposed?
The final version of the plan has no barn on it.
All right.
And
I
I'm
must-
seeing
I
right
must be
now as I'm
at
looking through the
wrong one.
OneDrive that all I see is a
All
concept
right.
plan, but
I'm
that's
on- I'm
not.
sorry, I was on the wrong one. There's one in there that shows the barn.
Yeah, unfortunately what happens with the OneDrive is it organizes by
Yeah.
date modified, which is then upload it, which is frustrating.
Yeah, all right, I'm on the right plan, sorry. So my vote is to do one step at a time, because we try to do everything, we'll never get anything done.
I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you said.
Oh, sorry, I'm in mumble mode. My vote would be to do one thing at a time, so deal with the IDA first, and then deal with enforcement. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
I would concur with that.
And the other commissioners?
That's fine with me.
So that's how we'll proceed.
I have one more, Kalina.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that way forward. My second question, we have 19 Kingston Street last on the agenda tonight. Do you want to keep it there, or do you want to do it after the RDA?
My vote would be to do them back to back.
I would agree with that.
Right.
Why don't we move that forward?
So having said that, I have the same feeling about this as I did at the last meeting, which is as long as the erosion control is maintained in good working order, I see nothing wrong with what they're asking. It meets all of the, regulations, and it fits, I think, under an RDA.
Okay. Before we move to a vote on that, I wonder if there are any comments from the public present? Okay. Then do I hear a motion to accept the request to issue a -3 DOA on this?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. So Dot? Say aye.
Oh, yes, I thought you asked me to repeat.
Megan?
Yes.
Kalina's a and aye. Buzz?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
Okay, so the ayes have it, and that motion passes. So we want to move forward to the,
We're going to go to take the last item out of order, which is enforcement on 19 Kingston Street.
I have a bunch of comments when you're ready.
when I'm ready, I'll recognize you.
Thank you.
Matt, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I wish I planned a better, formulated order here. I've spent most of the week putting together a timeline on this because it goes back a couple of years. Obviously, this is, I think, the 5th or 6th filing that we've seen for the construction of this house. This current contractor has been on the property for roughly 2 years. And last year, they were issued several fines for violations of OOCs or wetland regulations, however you want to look at it, mainly for erosion control issues. And I have now, which I shared very, very late with the commission, but I think it's like a 15-page timeline. I'm sorry, 11.
11.
Yeah. Just sort of hammering out the facts on this. So the bottom line is pretty much every time I've gone to the site, there have been issues.
And if I may, Madam Chairman, I counted up 12 site visits in going through here.
Thank you.
And I have to say, I mean, it's hard, typically we try to have a timeline, working as you go, but on certain projects like this where, you're on the site, sometimes just stopping by very quickly, checking on things, but, yeah, there have been issues. That's why I asked them to be here, when I went and did that site visit before the early May meeting, because not only was the rear erosion control in need of attention again and looking like it had been overtaken by water, whether it's stormwater or water being pumped out of the foundation again. The filter fabric had been removed from the front. So, they took quick action on that. And then, of course, as soon as the filter fabric went back in, the front of 19 Kingston Street was still not stabilized, dirt sloping down to the street. What had been there before for erosion control was, in my opinion, beyond disrepair. You can look at the pictures for yourselves and decide on that. They've been driven over a ton by construction vehicles over the course of, a year or 2 years. So there are issues with the site where Ocean Hill Drive flows down the street to that one catch basin in front of 15 Kingston Street. It's been like that for, I would imagine, decades, but since, 19, 15, you could say 11, but more 19 and 15 down in that very low spot right there have been developed with those site changes and lack of proper erosion control on that site. It's created issues. So now, since I made them put the filter fabric back in to follow the permit conditions and really to follow the plan of record, it's caused flooding, and it's caused flooding in a significant way because of sediment coming off of 19 Kingston Street. There's been a lot of back and forth between myself and Mike Schultz, the general contractor on the project, and he has tended that, in a way they're the victim of the town having poor stormwater practices from all that water coming down, and my take all along has been until you're following all of the conditions that are on your permit and the plan, then you're at fault when you're putting sediment out into the road, and that's also true when filter fabric causes backing up and pulls sediment off of your site if your site is not stabilized. So regardless of where you fall in any of that, they've taken steps. I've been communicating not only with them, but with the new owners of 15 and 19 Kingston Street, because they're unhappy with having to deal with a flooded road. My take on it all along has been the flooding is temporary, because when the projects are all wrapped up, there won't be filter fabric in there, but in the meantime, the filter fabric has to be in there to protect the stream out back, because that catch basin dumps directly into that stream, and the site is not stabilized. So I also said, if there's no sediment or very little sediment in the water, filter fabric will filter. So your flooding issues will be even more temporary. But when they're filled with sediment off of a construction site, it will not drain, and it will take a very, very long time. So we've had a handful of site visits there. They have scraped back some of the dirt away from the street, put down a strip of crushed stone. They ordered almost immediately a robust silt sock, but it took some time for the company to come out and install them. They did put in some areas of silt fence. They put down some sections of sod and a dewatering setup in between 19 and 15 Kingston Street, so that when it does flood and it doesn't look like it's going to drain down, they can pump into the back in between the two properties into a hay bale and fabric dewatering setup. I mentioned the other day, because it is still flooding, obviously, when the water comes down there, it is still backing up, that if I can see that 19 Kingston Street is completely stabilized, I will authorize myself the removal of that filter fabric, which really shouldn't happen until a COC is issued. But I will do that with the understanding that they're still on the hook for enforcement if site conditions change and they put sediment out into the road. So I think you'll hear from Mike that he says all winter long there was no problem when there was no filter fabric in there. There was nothing coming off of his site. The site was bare dirt, but it was packed down hard. And I just know that when I've been there this year, I was out front in the morning after getting an email from the abutter showing flooding in the road. And the owner of the company, Jeff McKinnon, showed up, and we were talking about potential fixes to the issue there. And I pointed to the ground right there and said, you have to look at this. After it rains, you still had trickles of water carrying sediment coming off of the front yard of 19 Kingston Street down into the street, into that puddle. So yes, Ocean Hill Drive is a problem. It's not the problem as far as conservation is concerned. Site conditions are the problem. Every time I've been to that site, there have been erosion control issues. They often take steps to fix them, but the next time I go out to the site, whenever that may be, months down the road, weeks down the road, I found more issues. So I think in this case, I think that the benefit of time in that, I asked them to come before the commission for the late May meeting. By now, they've had, a lot more weeks, and I can say they've taken steps. Right now, the site is a lot more stable than it was. They might be stable at this point. It might take a lot of rain to bring the remaining dirt off of there. I was down there with the highway superintendent today, just trying to see, can we be proactive? Do the catch basins on Ocean Hill Drive need to be cleaned out? Is there any way we can put a little silt sock up gradient to try to shed some of that water before it gets down the bottom of Kingston Street? Just temporary measures. Short answer on that diversion is no, but basically we're down there trying to do something proactive to help out with the issue, because there is a lot of water coming off Ocean Hill Drive, but the site has not been maintained. And that's where it's at. You have all the photos. Mike has said he has photos from over the last 2 years during rain events. He says, I'm never there when it rains, I'm only there after it rains. In some ways that's true. But what I've seen is sediment coming off of that construction site consistently, or at least erosion control, being inappropriate, not up to par consistently. So that's where we're at. I don't really have a recommendation for you. If you have questions, I can have answers. You can ask Mike, he's here. But that's where we're at, and bottom line, I think in the future, this is a performance thing that I think the commission has to consider in the future, that if we're going to issue other permits for this company, we need a better way to guarantee performance.
Comments from the commission on this? Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. So I'm pretty familiar with that situation, as my daughter lives at number 11, so a couple houses over. The problem with the Ocean Hill Drive water is that there's a catch basin at the bottom of Ocean Hill Drive, but the way Ocean Hill Drive is pitched, none of the water goes into the catch basin. So it completely misses it, goes down, and then it hits the berm. And before those houses were there, it used to overflow the land where the club was and just flow into the parking lot and then into the woods. So obviously, that's not the case anymore, because now the grade is lifted and it hits the, you know, the berm that's been reestablished. Because before there was 2 parking entrances, and the water would just come down, run across, and then run across that parking lot and into the woods.
Can I clarify 2 things on that before you continue? One being there was a catch basin in that parking lot, and 2 being from the highway superintendent today, there was a berm across what is now 19 and 15 Kingston Street, trying to guide the water towards the other catch basin as well, which hasn't been there since.
Well, I could go in the Wayback Machine and show you the photographs I have, and there was a clear opening there where the water used to sheet across the property. But in any event, the water is not controlled that's coming off the hill of Ocean Hill Drive. That being said, they absolutely need to finish that. The problem is they need to finish the site. And whatever they need to do to get that done is what they need to do. And then once it's done, then we won't have any sediment in the road, and then they can tip out the silt sack. And that pipe that's brand new, with the brand new concrete reinforced pipe that goes out back, that I was there, that they installed, is more than adequate to handle that water, to push it back out on the street in a clean way, as clean as street water can be. So my question is, when can they get this site done? Because that's gonna eliminate all these problems. Because we just gave them the IDA for the roof, I'm assuming that was the last piece they needed to finish, right?
I mean, to tell you the truth, the roof is already
I know it's there.
constructed. So the real issue, based on what Mike has told me, is that they didn't want to finish the front lawn because they've been waiting for the gas company to come hook up, and they're figuring if they do the lawn, the gas company's going to come in and dig everything up and mess it up on them. They're at the point now where they sort of have to do it anyways, because they're going to run out of the type of season where he would put down sod. Just inputting this timeline
I'd
together.
like to hear from them when they're gonna finish.
Just for one more point, in putting this timeline together, I came across one of the conditions that we had followed up with them on in October of 2022 when they took over this project, was that before work started, we needed a detailed construction sequence. And when I read through that construction sequence right now, that is not what happened. And if that construction sequence was followed, then we probably wouldn't have these issues. I get it. Things happen. If they don't get the gas hookup, that takes them out of order, but the site wasn't stabilized.
Can we hear from the representative, please?
Yep.
Come up
Yep.
to the podium, please. Identify yourself for the record, if you don't mind.
Good evening, Mike Schultz from J. McKinnon. I am the general contractor on the site. In terms of answering Mr. Adiano's question, we have scheduled a week from Monday, a crew to go in there and finish any downspouts that need to be set in the ground into the dry wells, where we've agreed to put a 5-foot wide crushed stone, basically path across the front of the property, and we're going to sod the entire front of the property. It has a well, it's going to be irrigated, and we're going to basically clean the entire front of the property so it's finished. That was not in the plan. We were going to hydroseed that, but we're going to sod it now. And we're trying to work with the gas company to put a 2-inch conduit in the ground so they don't have to come in and dig it up. It's not a matter of digging up sod. It's the fact that that entire property has irrigation, and the gas company will come in and just dig their hole and make the mess that they want to make, and we'll be left with it. So we were trying to avoid doing that, but we are going to move forward in doing that. In terms of sequence, the homeowner is here. This was a very difficult build for us. There were a lot of change orders, a lot of changes. The project was supposed to be done 6 months ago, and we're just completing and closing, last week. So I understand that the timeline is off a little bit, but we're doing the best we can to complete. We also had a failed wall in back of the house. A concrete patio wall had failed, and we're gonna have to keep a construction road open on the left side to access that and repair it. So it hasn't been an easy build. I think Matt has been more than supportive and tried to help us through this. At the end of the day, I do spend a lot of time on site. I do go out back and make sure that the ultimate goal is that that area has not been impeded in any way. Across 15 and 19, at this point, I would guess, and you can't see them all because they're buried, but I would say there's 2 silt socks anyway, maybe 3. And there's 2 silt fences that I put up, and before we even started, there was a silt fence, I believe it was from 11, that ran behind 11 and across the property almost all the way to 19. So there's a significant amount of erosion control behind the buildings. And if you've been back there recently, that area is actually, in my opinion, thriving. I mean, it's doing what it's supposed to do. There's wildflowers, there's trees, it's a robust area that's, both homeowners appreciate the look of that. It really finishes off the back of the property. In terms of the front, I mean, Matt and I have had some healthy conversations about how that water and it coming down Ocean Hill was managed. And, a good example of some of the things that we struggle with is we did take action very quickly. We had a silt sock put in, we dug a trench, put filter fabric down, landscape fabric. We put 6 or 8 to 12 inches of crushed stone across the whole front of the property. We put a new silt sock down. We put sod in the area that has been problematic for us. And that last torrential downpour, I believe it was Friday, Matt called and was not in and said, "How'd you guys do?" And that we have pictures of what happened, and the water came down, and, what's typically happening now that we've sort of got that, as Matt said, in a better place, is, the new enemy is pollen. So filter fabric, if you look it up, I looked it up, it can manage about 40 gallons per minute, roughly. That's really, 8 5-gallon buckets. So if you ever want to see crazy rain rushing down a hill, I've seen it a lot, I've gotten soaking wet a lot, but the volume of water that comes down that hill, it does catch a berm, and it does, for the most part, run its path. The reason why it doesn't hit the drain or the catch basin at the bottom of Ocean Hill is there was a repair done right before the catch basin. And it was a stretch of the road was cut out, and when it was repaired, it is frost heaved a little bit. So as it comes down the hill, it would pitch to that point, but it hits that berm and just goes right around it and goes down the street. So on Friday, what happened is, it was a pretty clean water coming down, but it was covered in pollen. And by the time it caught the silt sack, you could see it start to back up. And, if you were there, you would see that the water, it's not perfectly clean, 100% clean, but the water flow in our property was managing it. But as soon as that silt sock backs up, it starts to flood, and it starts to flood. And as it floods, it crawls back across 15, and it crawls back across 19, and it then goes underneath. So it's actually going underneath the control we have on our side, and just starting to go up, 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 and it reaches far enough to hit the sand, and then it just pulls it down. So, I've argued with Matt and that we're managing 2 things. We're managing our site, we're managing the water, and when it floods, it is problematic for us. But we do our best to take action. I'm not saying we're perfect in any means, but the ultimate goal for us has been to make sure we maintain the backspace and try to maintain the catch basins. And I've gone in the rain and watched the water come through the catch basins. I've done, the best I can, but I am concerned about, and one of the homeowners is here, I am concerned about the flow of that water for them when we do finish up. So, happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions from the commission?
So thank you for that thorough answer, but the question is when can you be done?
So, we're starting Monday. We're gonna have a big crew there. I don't think it's gonna take us more past Wednesday, Thursday. So by the end of, a week from Monday, we got a crew going in there. I would say by Friday, we're clean and done. The only thing that would not be finished across the front of the property is on the left side where there's a swale going in, we do have to have an access road to get a cement truck back there. It'll be about 10 feet wide, and it will have a wattle on it that we can manage and move and put back. But that really has never, that area, the way the pitch goes is, and the water comes down, that area is fairly flat, and, Matt can tell you that the problem is around the driveway where the water is, and that is a permeable driveway. So I didn't think permeable driveways worked as well as they do, but they do. They absorb the water, and there's not a rush of water coming off that driveway.
Anything else from the commission? Any comments from the public present or online? Anything else, Matt?
No, I'm not here to beat up on Mike on this, but we're gonna get, it looks like significant rain Friday. We're gonna get it Friday, maybe in the evening. I'm not coming in. I've told him before, call me, email me, phone goes right to my phone. I'll come down while it's raining, I'll take a look. That's not happening on a Friday or Saturday. I'm just not gonna come in and look at it, so this will be a test, I think, of the site, and I don't know if you're gonna have somebody there pumping, because I know we're gonna get emails and phone calls from the neighbor, and I can consistently get emails saying, flooded again, town needs to do something. I get, I've explained several times that this is a temporary thing, and the filter fabric has to be there, but
Right, but you've said, once he has that whole site stabilized, you're gonna allow him to pull that filter fabric.
right. And
So that's
the
gonna.
thing is, so what Mike just said is true. You know, there were times in between where the water was coming in and then immediately scouring the site
Yeah.
because the site was unstabilized or stabilized with dirt. And now that they've taken all of these steps, the photos to me looks like it might be okay. Depending on the severity of the storm, it might not be. So a week is great, because a week and not having to deal with this would be awesome, but I can already envision Friday evening and Saturday,
All right,
what's
well,
gonna be happening, so.
I'm gonna pray that doesn't happen and it's 7 o'clock, so we need to move to our hearings.
Okay.
Well, I had one other thing I wanted to ask.
Yes, Marilyn?
Knowing that this storm is coming potentially, what are you prepared to do? Are you prepared to be on site to troubleshoot? What are you prepared to do?
So the only thing we can do is I swept the road again today. We'll blow it, it's still a little wet in places. We'll blow the road clean. And then the only thing we can do, I mean, it's hard to explain what happens if you're not there. But again, the filter fabric is a work in place, but the type of rainstorms we get now are not, they're unusually, they're not a normal rainstorm. So in theory, a filter fabric is gonna work. Like I said, 40 gallons per minute is not a lot of water. We're getting, I don't know, what would you say, 200 gallons a minute coming down there? I mean, so regardless of if it's completely clean and pollen-free, it would back up. So I am anticipating it backing up. The only thing we can do when it backs up, and this was a recommendation from Matt, was to the right of the property where it's going to back up. So it's gonna catch that catch basin. It will, I'm telling you right now, it'll back up with the filter fabric. As clean as it can be, it's gonna back up. So the road will be clean, the water coming down will be clean, it'll back up, and then it will undermine everything that we've built. So a recommendation from Matt was, we dig a trench, we fill it with stone, we put a pump in it. There is a pump in there. So the only thing we can do, and the homeowner is here, is he runs outside and he plugs the pump into the side of his house and it pumps into a retention center that we've created, and it just basically floods the back of his property.
All right, well, the sooner you're done, the sooner we'll be out of trouble.
Matt?
Yes, Dodd?
As the town said anything about fixing Ocean Hill Drive so it drains properly up there?
Not while, town's not gonna do anything until this project is done. Paul
It seems to
Basler
me
said
that's
if he can
backwards.
coordinate with him on when they're gonna sod, then he'll have his guys come out and redo that berm so that it guides the stuff down there. But the town can't just fix stormwater infrastructure like that. They need planning, they need funding, all of that.
Oh.
And this is not something that really was brought up. I mean, I've had, you know, them down to see 19 Kingston Street in that flooding before, but, you know, hey, can you plan a fix for Ocean Hill Drive is not something that was pitched to Paul Basler until today,
Okay.
Okay.
so.
All right, well, thank you very much. I'd like to move on to Section A. This is public hearings. And this is a public hearing for Tarkiln Road. This is Lot 1. Notice of intent for the proposed construction of a single-family dwelling, associated driveway, private septic system, and utility connections. A portion of the proposed work is located within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetative wetland. So I open that public hearing. Shall we hear from the representative and the applicant for a presentation, please?
Sure. Good evening, Austin Chartier with McKenzie Engineering Group. Here on behalf of the applicant, Brownville Construction. They can't be here tonight, but I am pretty familiar with the site and I can answer any questions you might have. But so we filed the notice of intent for construction of a single-family home here. It's a buffer zone project, so the house, grading, and pavement is within 100-foot buffer zone. We prepared the application in compliance with the Kingston Wetland Protection Regulations and the DEP Wetland Regulations. So the property is located right on the Kingston-Duxbury line. I'll turn this over for a second. So lot 1 here is shown in yellow, we'll call it. The plan north of that is the Duxbury town line. So this property, a little history going back, these were active cranberry bogs that were out here, I think until the early 2000s. And then in 2003, there was an A&R filed on this property, subdividing it for construction. It was cut into 3 lots, they're shown in blue here. So what we did, that was filed in 2003, and since then there's been some planning and essentially no-go on those developments. So the applicant has the property under agreement and has filed an A&R with the town. It was endorsed in March of 2024, essentially approving what you see here in yellow and orange. So these are the 2 new lots that were cut out of the 3 lots. So lot 1, which is what we're talking about, is this lot in yellow here. So it's about 4 acres, but our total footprint of disturbance is about 17,000 square feet. So it really is a small limit of disturbance here. Essentially, they're proposing a 80 by 30 house, a Title V septic system that'll be private, a private well that'll just be, as of now, for domestic. They're not proposing any irrigation. What else? So yeah, we met with Matt out here last week to do a site walk out here. Essentially, as I mentioned, these are old bogs that were basically just left out here. So the limit of the wetland is pretty well defined out here. And Matt brought up some standing water out here within the wetlands, which is common, but sometimes if it's an upland bog, you can drain them out. So we did go around and inspect the outlet control structures out here, and anything that would be controlling water out here has been removed. So it is just groundwater sitting in those wetlands. So it's just, the condition. It's a wetland and it's wet. So what we're proposing in terms of sediment control out here is essentially we're going to wrap the whole site with a silt sock. We're proposing a construction entrance to the site, which helps for washing down construction vehicles and getting sediment off tires before they exit the site, as well as we propose a stockpile area and staging area for loose materials and anything getting delivered to the site. We received the staff report yesterday. I did review it. I didn't see anything major in it. There was one comment about snow plowing. In general out here, the south side of this site is where the old bog is, and the north side is essentially all upland. So we can put some signage. Another recommendation is the signage of the wetland protection, do not disturb out here, which I think is a good idea. And maybe we could make something clear about plowing to the north side of the driveway, not the south. But I'm happy to answer any questions the commission might have about the site.
Please, before we go to questions from the commission, may I ask Matt if you have any comments?
Sure. As Austin said, it's a buffer zone only project. I did not review many wetland flags for the reason that he pointed out. I mean, the wetland edge essentially is the upland edge of the old bog perimeter ditches. I can review further if anybody wants. You emailed the butter notifications today, correct?
I did, yeah, I have the slips here too.
Okay. everything meets KWPR minimum setbacks, including the septic. I mean, the septic's just barely outside of the 100. The structure is, I think, just outside of the 50, so it checks all the minimum boxes. The narrative claims no pesticides, herbicides, or inorganic fertilizers will be used within 100 feet of the wetland resource areas. Things that I saw, the existing driveway that comes in off of Tarkiln Road is not proposed to be modified for either Lot 1 or Lot 2. I feel like that's something that could come up in the future, either as another filing or enforcement. Typically, you just see people saying, hey, let's just go pave it, or something like that. So something like that, I think, there are things that are better dealt with out in advance than later. And I think you've seen Commissioner Ardiano ask those questions on single-family projects before. The use of the property, I think, is changing significantly over what's there right now, while the majority of the driveway will be left alone as a sand driveway, as proposed. As Austin said, those ditches, when I was there on June 4th, I think it had been a few days since a significant rain. There was a significant amount of standing water in those ditches. Like you said, it's a wetland, but it's a different kind of wetland, often less healthy than your standard wetland. You have less predatory insects and whatnot. I think that you're potentially looking at problems here. You're going to have somebody's backyard being, right up against a major mosquito breeding habitat, and the answer to that is going to be spraying. It says right on the narrative, no pesticides, but when somebody lives there, there's going to be pesticides. They're going to call mosquito control. They're going to do it themselves. They're going to call Mosquito Larry or whatever these companies, and then you end up with a wetlands protection issue. Now you have an even less healthy wetland because now you're spraying pesticides in it. So I don't know what the answer is there. That's why I asked them, see what you can do. A lot of times these bogs, people just walk away from them, leave them there. There's no real way to make them do anything different with it because any modification of it would need its own permitting. But I think it's something that has to be considered. We talk about putting people in close proximity to major mosquito breeding areas. You have issues, and that's what we're talking about on Lot 1 and Lot 2. He mentioned snow disposal. That was just a thought. It's something that we think about more on bigger developments, but here with the proximity to the wetlands, and I would say more so on Lot 2 than Lot 1 because you have the driveway looping around the property near the wetlands. It's just a consideration because you're going to have salt, you're going to have chemicals, and ideally you keep those from draining into the wetlands. I also thought, like Austin mentioned, conservation posts would be a good idea just to limit encroachment, get as much of a healthy buffer zone as you can get to those wetlands, and maybe that over time can help the ecology and help you get more mosquito predation. Yeah, that's pretty much all unless you have questions.
Commissioners, any questions? Okay.
Jim, how are you?
Hey, bud.
Forgot what you look like.
It's been a
Are there any comments from members of the?
I have a couple when after the
Okay,
public's
Buzz.
done.
You have questions?
I'll wait till the public's done. I'll wait till the public is done.
All right, any comments from members of the, if, please come to the podium, identify yourself for the record if you don't mind.
Hello, my name is Richard Woodopoulos. I live up in 1 South Street. I have a
Oh,
cranberry.
I'm sorry, sir, the microphone I don't think is on. You gotta push the button and the green light should come on.
There it is.
There you go. If
Okay,
you could
let's
start over.
start over again if you don't
My
mind.
name is Richard Woodopoulos. I live at 1 South Street. I have a cranberry bog up and back there. One issue I have is you build homes there, salt in the water, the mosquitoes, if they spray or something, it gets in the water, that water just loops around, goes up to the swamp. I go to flood my bog, organic bog, no chemicals or anything. Now I'm killing my crop. There's my livelihood. Second of all, you build 2 houses there. What happens to the deer that's living in there? There's wild turkeys in there, there's rabbits, there's foxes. You know, you keep on taking the land away, they're gonna be in our living rooms. You know? And no one's mentioned anything about Old Road or the old Stagecoach Road, historical. You know, no one's mentioned anything about you're putting 2 new homes in, 4 bedrooms, 3-bedroom houses. Okay? Now that road or driveway, whatever you call it, where's all this added traffic? You can't get a car going up and a car coming down by. You know, and what are you gonna do? Take more history away from us and do away with the Stagecoach Road? I mean, I've been using that road for over 50 years. The Ojala family has been using it maybe 60 odd years. And then the Pratts before them, and then Linda before them. I mean, hundreds of years. You know, when is it all gonna end? Why don't our neighborhood, Buckford, Tarkland Road, you know, all that area, people walk their dogs around because it loops around. Mothers bring their kids down to ride bikes because there's no traffic. You know, our house, 1 car goes out and it's out for the day, and 6, 7 o'clock at night, the car comes back. You know, it's not like we use it as a highway or anything. But, you know, I'm sorry, I just forgot my chain of thought. But you get what I'm saying. And, you know, you got the black swamp there, so there's always gonna be water going into the thing. We control the water from the swamp up top to flood and unflood our bogs. There's Mile River. I believe that goes even down in back of CVS and across the highway, you know, underneath. But, I mean, I remember when it was Tassie's up there and they had the golf course out back. And, you know, the water just ran its own course. Now, 2 homes going in, it's gonna alter that. You know?
Do you know offhand if the old Stagecoach Road has any historical protection? Is it registered with like the historic district?
I have no idea, because back when they did Route 3, they took a chunk of the Stagecoach Road away, and then it picks up again over by the church. But it's on the map, Old Road, no, it's on the maps, and the Stagecoach Road was used as far back as 1700s. Governor Bradford used to stop, back when our house was the old house back in 1710, I think it was built. Governor Bradford would use that as a stopping point, going to Plymouth or going, you know, into Boston. So I imagine it does have some historical value or on the books.
Well, it'd be interesting to find out from the Historic District Commission if it does. That's not us, but that's.
Can I get my questions in now? Thank you.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
No, you're good. That was very good. So I agree with you, Matt, that honestly, the only 2 things that I see is, and what was your name again, the engineer?
Austin Chartier.
Austin. So the only two things I really see is the vent pipe, and I don't even know if this is in our jurisdiction, I can't really tell what a 100-foot line is, but the vent pipe for that septic system, if you're gonna put it out there, you definitely need a bollard around it or something so it doesn't get snapped off. That's really in a bad spot, in my opinion, and once that gets snapped off, the septic's gonna fail. And then, so that's more of a side note, I guess. And then the second, I guess my mic isn't on. The second note is, I agree with Matt that we really need to think about what that road's gonna be. I don't know how much, again, I don't know how much of that is in our jurisdiction. But, you know, I agree that at some point, someone's gonna say, hey, Lot 2, let's get together and pave this road.
Just to feed you on that, I think probably the entire thing, because the bog corner that you see right here follows, or right here rather, follows the road back, and that was part of the issue where previously they were coming in showing different types of developments, but they were asking me, hey, do you think the commission would allow us to pave this road? It's however many couple feet from the wetland, and my take was usually probably not. And I don't know if you can use it like that as it is for fire access and everything, because it's an old sand road, you know, it's not.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I could go, there's 6, 7 ways to slice that. I think maybe there needs to be some type of deed restriction as part of our approval, if we have the ability to do that.
Like a perpetual condition.
Perpetual condition, whatever the proper language is. Or maybe we say you can pave the driveway part, but not the road, and make that part of the conditions. Just because I know if I lived in a brand new house, I would want at least in front of my house paved, you know, coming from the road up to my driveway, so every time I pulled in my garage, I wasn't tracking in, you know, dust and dirt and everything else. And then from a snow control standpoint, you know, if you're plowing, hang on one second, if you're plowing, we'll give you a turn, I promise.
No.
You know, if you're plowing, I'd rather have them plowing on, you know, even if it has to be pervious paving, so that we're not plowing up dirt and all that. So I think just from the rest of it seems fine to me. I think those are my 2 concerns, for me personally.
Sir, would you like to come back to the podium for a second?
Okay.
Just on what he was
Just
saying.
identify yourself again, so we know.
Richardopoulos. We do have a deeded right-of-way.
No, that's not what I was referring to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so what I was referring to is that there would be something in the order conditions that would last forever that says you can't pave the road.
Yeah, well, none, from the mailbox and all the property at 1 South, there is no blacktop.
I understand that,
And I'd be
but
afraid that 2 new homes with blacktop, oil, gas filled, it's just gonna find its way into the water.
not disputing that, and that's exactly what I was saying.
Why don't they donate it to the town and let people use it as a park?
Well, unfortunately, that's not what's before us right now.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Madam, you had a,
Hi.
please identify yourself for the record, and
Yes, my name is Kathleen Eaton. I live at 40 South Street in Duxbury, right over the line. And I'm frankly a little bit confused. I got a letter in the mail because I'm in a butter, and I was told that a single-family home was going to be built, and there was no, it was very confusing. I had my daughter Google it to see where it was, what even property. So we've been there for 27 years, my husband and myself, and he's not able to come today. I can't tell you how many times we've had to try to fight off developments. One was right on at 45 South Street. They were proposing to put in like a 40B with all these units and everything. That piece of property, and something behind that also, we've had to fight off. So I'm confused. Is this single-family homes, and how many single-family homes are there? And is there a guarantee that this is gonna be it? Like if these are built or one is built, it's a huge piece of property, so I was very surprised to hear that it was gonna be one single-family home after the things that we've had to put up with and endure. I am so fed up with it. We've lived a quiet life there, paid our taxes in Duxbury, always obeyed the rules everywhere, and all, people come in that want to make money, and they don't care about the neighborhood, they don't care about us. You can't even get out of the street down at CVS because there's so much traffic, and that's basically between, there was a woman years ago that was part of the Jones watershed or something, an older woman, and I know she came to something because, you know, it is wetland. And so when we moved in there 27 years ago, we weren't thinking that it was a beautiful bog. Our kids used to ice skate down there in the winter. They would flood it. And it's like he said, it's a beautiful piece of property, and it's a shame that because somebody wants to make some money and doesn't give, I won't even use a bad word, but about us or the fact that we've all paid taxes and lived here quietly, nobody cares. So I guess I'm so fed up with worrying about it that I think that if it was gonna be 2 homes and that was gonna be it, I would be okay with it because I'm so sick and tired. I'm in my 60s now. I was 39 years old when we bought the house. Our house was the worst house in the neighborhood, and we have put our blood, sweat, and tears into it, and I'm so fed up with it. I'm fed up with coming here and every few years seeing people doing surveying over there and having to worry about it. I'm fed up with it. So like I said, I want to know, it's confusing because the letter I got said 1 single family home. And so is it going to be 1? Is it going to be 2? Is it going to be 5? Is it going to be condos? Like, I don't, and they're so
Can I get a word
sneaky
in?
about it.
I was
Can I get a word in?
I was gonna
Yes,
ask
you
if I can.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm just
No, you,
fed up with it all.
no, you know what, I see that.
Commissioner,
So there's 2
Commissioner
filings.
Attiano, can we hear from
Please.
Matt for just a second first?
Well, I was answering her question, so.
Yeah, there are 2 filings in front of us tonight, Lot 1 and Lot 2. Each one proposes a single-family house. I can't speak to whether they have more land there that would be buildable or not. I can say that they have brought, as Austin said, some things forward before, trying to figure out larger developments, and I think there were site issues there between public safety access and wetlands issues. Just speaking sort of to both members of the public who have spoken tonight, when we do have bigger, more publicly opposed projects, the commission has very specific mandate and regulations as a guideline to follow. And while they all, I'm sure, just like myself, love wildlife and want to preserve areas for them, things are set up in a certain way very specifically in order to not take people's land rights away. And whether or not they have a house already on the property, they still have the rights to that property. So if the commission says, no, you can't build there, and they don't really have a great defensible reason in their regulations, very good chance that gets overturned in court and by DEP. And then, in my opinion, makes the commission look frivolous when we have future court cases where we have better standing. So I just like to always bring that up because there are very specific guidelines that we have to follow as a commission. And as I said before, this one barely ticks those off. That doesn't mean the commission has to say yes. The commission can look at the whole thing together and say, no, this is going to be an issue, and they can deny it. And they do have the right, then the owner of the property, the applicant, can appeal that through the DEP and through the local courts. But that's a long answer for your question.
Commissioner Attiano?
No,
anything to
he
add to
said
that?
what I was gonna say, so.
All right, thank
Two
you.
houses.
So we don't know what this other piece of property, it's this thing right here.
That is, lot 2 is in orange. The house is proposed right up in here,
Yeah,
and that's all just.
I couldn't see from over there what you
Yeah, it's-
what you were doing over here.
So yeah, it's 2
So it's 2
single-family homes.
single-family homes.
Nice little chunk of homes.
All right, don't speak out unless you're at the podium, thank
Well,
you.
like I said, I'm so fed up with that piece of property that I would actually be okay with it because I'm sick to death of worrying about what's gonna go there. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, certainly. Are there any other comments from the public? Yes, please come up and identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Mark Carlson. I live right across the street from there at 30 Tark Hill. And the thing that they said about the pesticides, you put the houses here, it's gonna be right by the wetlands. That's not gonna go away. So I don't know how they can accept it by any means, because you can't avoid it. But that's all I wanted to say.
All right, well, thank you very much for that. Anything else?
No, I mean, I'll just reiterate, I think in my review, I made it clear that this meets all of the basic setbacks, but I foresee the interaction of human health concerns and wetland health concerns. I mean, when you have mosquito concerns, human health will always take precedence, and there will be no way to enforce a perpetual condition that says no spraying of chemicals on this property. If they call Plymouth County Mosquito Control and get on their weekly or monthly route, they'll come do it for them. I mean, they may already be doing it, I have no idea. But, you know, building houses that close, I mean, we're talking about the house being just outside of the 50-foot buffer. So, you know, we're talking a little bit conservation posts somewhere if this gets approved in the backyard to maintain some sort of a vegetated buffer there, but anything that's between the conservation posts and the house is the area where people are gonna live. If there's kids, that's where kids are gonna play, and people are going to maintain their property in a way to keep their family safe. So I do personally see concerns there based on mosquitoes, based on what I saw. I can pull the pictures up if you want, if everybody hasn't reviewed them. It is very much like what we saw on the western perimeter of the Blackwater, Winthrop Street property, where there appeared to be no flow and just stagnant water, and that's where you get, in my opinion, not in my opinion, that's where you get heavy mosquito breeding. So,
Do we know if this was an upland bog or if this was a bog?
this, we have a very robust filing archive on this property. I don't know if it was 10 plus years ago.
2005.
What was that?
2005.
2005. I don't know if it's the current or previous owner of the property, but they contended that it was all of upland origin, and I believe we're trying to move forward with a large-scale development on there, and the Conservation Commission said they believed it was wetlands, and it went to review by DEP, and then I believe peer review on top of that,
Yeah.
and was determined to be wetland. As to whether or not it was of wetland origin, I don't know if that was determined or not, but there was wetland there now. So that's essentially the way the regs speak. If you have an agricultural use and you abandon it for 5 years, it's no longer an agricultural use. If it's a wetland at that point, it's a wetland. So that was essentially affirmed, you know, in 2005 that it was wetlands. So.
Right, but we don't know if this was created as a bog or if it existed as a bog back in the day.
I don't know what the condition of this, where the cranberry bogs currently are, and I haven't really looked into whether there was any information about a historical mapped wetland there or something like that.
Thank you.
Clean them.
Yes.
So Matt, is judging on, because I didn't get to go to the site, judging by what you saw out there with these mosquito ditches, is there an ability where they are filing an NOI for them to remediate those and alleviate some of the concerns that me as one person would not approve this project? Just if we're,
Can you speak up a little bit?
yeah, if we're causing these problems and we're creating these ditch conditions close to people's houses where their kids can't go out because they're afraid of getting triple E, we're not doing anything good for the people who are moving into this at some point when it's built, or the mosquito eating larvae, whatever, that might want to eat off of that, right? If we kill everything, we're killing everything, and we're killing everything down line. So me as one person, I want to see you guys, if you're serious about developing this, curing some of the conditions that are there that would make me feel okay with the fact that you're not going to be dumping pesticides into the water every 2 weeks or whatever the spray cycle is for mosquito control. So I don't know if you can speak to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can just say that.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Question
sorry,
is to
go
Matt.
ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I can answer that. That's sort of why I brought it up at the site visit, because to me, the way the permitting process works, we kick it back to the applicant if there's an issue. So at the site visit, I saw what I perceived to be a potential problem and said, you have until now in the meeting to look into it and see if there's anything you can do. I don't know what the answer is. I said you could check out and see if there are any other water control structures somewhere maybe that are obstructed, or I said I don't know what the answer is, because I don't want to say in the business of ecological restoration, but that's something that we do and we're doing right now, and it takes a lot of permitting. And I don't think it would be easy just to say like, all right, well, we'll allow some sort of modification in there to get rid of the standing water, because we're letting them, as far as the permitting is concerned, fill or alter a wetland. So I don't have a great answer of what they could do there other than wetland restoration, which would be expensive. There may be a situation where, the wetland portions of the property could be conferred to a nonprofit or to the town, where they could then get grant funding for restoration. A restoration would deal with a lot of those issues. I mean, it's still not good to have people living very close to wetlands, because wetlands breed mosquitoes, but there's a natural system in most wetlands that can help take care of that, where in this case, what you're looking at here is not what a quality wetland should look like. That's an abandoned cranberry bog. Somebody walked away from it and pulled the water control structures, and nothing is draining. So I don't have a great answer for you. And I don't think that it sounds like they found a good answer for that. It sounds like they confirmed that there are no water control structures in place that
Could
could
I
be
just
easily
ask
modified.
Mr. Chartier, if you have a response to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can just say that, the projects that is proposed in front of you meets, the state storm, wetland bylaw, as well as the town of Kingston wetland bylaw. It doesn't change, everything that's on this site is still within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission at the end of the day. Just like, any other site that borders wetland in town. So when you say, are they gonna go out and pave the driveway, then, they'd be subject to enforcement, and, it's within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission at the end of the day.
Sir, do you have something new to offer?
Yes, Richardopoulos. I go by this piece of property every day to take the grandson to school. And you look into the woods, onto the bog, and there's standing water there. There's water in the ditches year-round. If you look going up the road to the left, as you turn onto the road, there's water there. I'm not sure. I think it might be the river.
Mile Brook.
Mile River.
Mile Brook.
And then further up, you start on the left side getting into the swamp area. Now there's 2 canals under the road that feeds into that bog. And, I've never seen that dry up or stop, because you got the swamp. I forget where it comes from, but it feeds all the way down. It feeds into our property and stuff, and into the bog, and then back into the swamp area, and down the canal into a pond in the woods behind the houses on Tarkman, 23, 25, 27, out back there's a pond that all this feeds into, and then disperse down towards the strip mall underneath the, what's the name of the street? Well, we, you know, 3A's right there, and then, you know, going up to the highway. But, you know, you start building in there, you're gonna eventually end up rerouting the waterway. You know, and, you know, the reason I don't get mosquitoes is because we have all the wildlife in the woods, you know, and the birds that eat the mosquitoes and stuff. But,
Thank
you
you.
know, I
Thank you
just
very
don't know
much.
how they're gonna stop the mosquitoes unless they use pesticides.
Do you want to comment, please? Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Brian Taylor from Stenbeck and Taylor. We're in Marshfield. Marshfield's very appropriately named, so we deal with this stuff in a lot of our OFCs. And what we have done before is it's the same thing with the tick control, when that was really bad, like 4 or 5 years ago. Everything is, we have them stipulate in the OFC that there be a contract for yearly maintenance on the yards with strictly natural product. In that case, the tick control, I think they use like a cayenne pepper, some super duper pepper. And then in the mosquito control, they use a combination of eucalyptus and lemon, I believe. And that's actually what I keep in all my trucks. We have surveyors, and I tell them to spray down with that because I'd rather they spray down with that instead of DDT. So just wanted to offer, that's what we do in Marshfield.
That's helpful, thank you, Matt.
Question while he's up here?
Yes.
Can you speak up a little bit too?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, sorry.
Just trying to wrap my head around that a little bit, because this is something that we talk about a lot, right? We have conditions that we find then hard to enforce. So for, you know, chemical treatments on the lawns, we now, in the orders of conditions, say that you have to keep receipts of what you purchase, or your landscaper has to track that stuff, and you have to have invoices if we ask. Basically states that if we ask and you don't have it, that's an enforcement issue. We have yet to see whether that works appropriately or not, but it sounds like what you're saying is you're asking the applicant or mandating that the applicant give the conservation department an annual contract that stipulates that they're not using chemicals?
We have people who will volunteer to do that in order to,
Volunteer to do that, okay.
You know, it is voluntary. And if it's included in order of conditions and the applicant doesn't take an appeal, most people are doing it now anyway, you know. It's the same thing with the organic fertilizers, as you say. So most people are a lot more sensitive to it, particularly if you have kids.
All right, that's helpful, thank you.
And we have pets too.
All right,
Just thought about it. Thank you.
thank you. We ready to hear a motion to close this hearing or to continue it?
I think I feel like we're in continue mode because I want to hear lot 2 before we close lot 1.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Because what I don't want to get is we do one and not the other, and, I mean, they're right next to each other, I know it has to be 2 filings because it's 2 lots, but it's really one project for 2 houses. So let's deal with the whole thing in its entirety, and then we can always, I guess we would continue this one and then start the next one, right? I don't think we can talk about the next one until we do something with this one, legally. I don't
Right.
think we can just park it. I think we've got to continue it and then
Talk the other
open
one and
it.
then.
Correct.
I'd just like to
don't know.
kind of say before
I guess we'll
we can
continue.
take a vote to continue,
Is that legal?
if we're going to continue, I would like to see some kind of thought progress into what my concerns were, if you want me to vote in support of this.
To restoring the wetland, or?
Figuring out what you can do. I don't know what you can do.
Yeah.
Put some time and effort into it, and if there's a path forward, you know, I don't think that there was anything else on there that was.
Can I pause on
something
that
we
for 1
couldn't
second?
do. Go ahead.
Okay, Matt?
Can I ask the local scene rep in there, could you hear Jim? Yeah?
No, it's okay, sir, he was talking to
No, sorry, I was talking to
video
the
guy in
local
the
scene
back.
there. Sorry, Jim, not to jump on you, the mics were both on the sides and you weren't speaking loud. I want to make sure that Juliana will be able to
It's a long day.
write out your, the minutes, that's all. Sorry, proceed.
You understood.
You got to lean into the mic, not back off of it.
I can't. If I lean into the mic, I can't look him in the eyes, Buzz. You know how this works.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, you know, we just received the staff report as well, so we can, you know, formally respond to that staff report if we continue.
My question is, can we continue this until we hear Lot 2, or do we have to continue it to a date?
Well, if we continue it, it has to be posted again, so it has to be continued to a date, right?
I'm just asking a question. I don't know if we can do that.
I think technically, if you wanted to continue it for the time period to tonight after talking about Lot 2, you could. I think the question is, does anybody have questions that they would like answers for that aren't likely to be answered tonight? And I think if that's the case, continue Lot 1 to a date certain. Let's jump into Lot 2, which, if you noticed, my staff report, I think, had 2 different words in it for Lot 2 than Lot 1. It would be the same thing, basically.
And I agree with you, just understand though, if we do that, we can't go back tonight and talk about Lot 1 at all.
That's all just I'm saying to the commission, is if there are members who feel like they have questions that aren't likely to be answered
I'm
while we're
just
talking
asking a
about Lot
question.
2, then it's better to just continue it to a date certain and go from there.
All right.
Can I, just because Buzz has a really good point here, right, and this is where I'm gonna go with it. Matt, is there a reason why we can't ask for future parcels like this to be listed as one NOI as the group with the lines drawn on them, so that we can look at and talk about the whole thing? Because look at Kingston Street with 4 different,
I know.
that was a mess, and it's continued to be a mess, and it's no one's real fault because we didn't necessarily do anything specifically wrong on that, but it was a mess. We created a mess, we're living with the mess, we're dealing with the mess.
To answer your question, no. I would, I think, talk to council about how we would handle that, because I think things are pitched in a specific way for a reason by applicants, to best take advantage of property rights on subdivided parcels.
Yeah, no, if it's an individual lot, it has to be its own filing.
I'm not positive on that, because you have entire subdivisions filed together. It likely can be done.
Yeah, but
it
they're
gets
not-
a little more confusing down the road with
But
deed,
Yeah.
you know, things, but it's done. So
I don't disagree that orders of conditions, I think, need to be site-specific, right? But I am asking that if this comes in and it's 2 different, and obviously it's a difficult filing for some specific parts of it, and other parts are pretty generic, right? I think that if you guys come in with one plan, we get to talk about everything, we get to draw the lines, we get to show everything, we can say, okay, here it is. Now design your, you know, put your houses where you think it is. We can probably steer people away from some of the bad things that they want to do just by telling them up front. Draw the lines, they're there, put everything else out of it, we're good to go. When they come in, it's a little bit more tricky because I understand what they're trying to do, but at the same time, I think it doesn't, having or file them at different times and don't have them come in at the same time, and we're just stuck playing that game again.
well, that's the difference now between what we saw originally on Kingston Street and this, is that these are filed at the same time. So you are reviewing them, but you are reviewing them separately. So what does it matter, right? A lot of what you were talking about, I think, happens on the staff level, where an engineer or the owner of the property or the wetlands person comes in and asks me, asks planning, asks zoning, hey, what do you see here? Do you think this would fly? And I'm never saying yes or no, but I'm saying, based on the regulations, there's this and that. So I think we do sort of get that. In this case, that didn't happen for this iteration. It only happened for previous iterations, but, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, the real reason that we do it this way is that so one property's not tied up with another property. That's really it. It's the applicant owns both the properties, gonna build them both at the same time.
yeah. So I guess just to circle back before we close, you know, continue this one. I mean, I'm leaning towards saying the driveway, you know, to the right of way or whatever we're calling that, should be shown as paved and then just be done with it and listed in the calculations and everything.
To clarify, you're talking about from Tarkiln Road into Lot 1?
Yeah, into the house, yeah. Because it's gonna happen, let's just deal with it now, have it in the calculations, impervious surface, yada, yada, yada. And then we can put a perpetual stipulation that Tarkton Road can't be, paved or whatever.
I'm confused. Tarkiln Road is paved. There's an access path that comes in off of Tarkiln Road to
It
Lot 1
says
and
gravel
2.
driveway on here, I've never been down there.
It's off of Tarkin Road, though.
Yeah.
Well, whatever that
The
path
road
is.
is Tarkon, that's.
15, excuse me, it's not, I'm sorry, you're right. It's a 15-foot wide right-of-way. And I'm saying that's a dirt road right now,
Yes.
right? And what I'm saying is, for sure, they're gonna pave at least their driveway, they're gonna want it paved. I mean, this is a big house, it's gonna be expensive. No one's gonna move into that house with a dirt driveway. So let's just deal with it now and say you can pave the driveway, but you can't pave the right-of-way.
I guess I would caution on telling them that that's the right move, because
I'm telling you, this is
No, I'm
one
telling
man's
you-
opinion.
I know it's one man's opinion, but my point is that it's not gonna meet the regulations. So right now, they've shown you something that meets the minimum setbacks, but has wetlands protection issues. And then, if that's the way the commission guides them towards, you're guiding them towards something that won't meet minimum
So
setbacks.
if they put pervious pavement, they have an issue?
Well, you'd be working within the no disturb zone to a wetland. Obviously, it's an existing driveway, but it's not proposed at this point. We are proposing paved driveways to the houses
Well,
within the limit of work.
that's what I'm talking about, and I don't see that note. I'm talking about, can you put the site plan up?
I think I show the proposed pavement as hatched.
So where
You see a note on the end here that says pavement?
I didn't see it myself, and then I'm usually good at finding these, because
Right.
I see a hatched area, but I see it.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a busy
I
point.
see
Lay down.
it's darker color, but I don't see a note. So can you walk up there and tell us what part you're saying is gonna be paved?
Yeah, if you want to keep panning down a little, you can see better a little.
Hold on, right here in the middle, proposed bituminous concrete pavement and widening of existing gravel driveway is right there.
There
See
it
that?
Yep.
So this is
See
your
it?
garage for lot 1.
Yep.
This is your driveway coming out
So just tell us what part's being paved.
here and here.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Okay, so you already have that in your calculations.
Yes, yep, that's.
Okay, so I'm
we account for that
sorry,
in the application.
I was not reading the plan correctly. I'm gonna retract everything I just said about the driveway.
So now I'm a little
This is it.
confused, right?
The
So
page is red.
the driveway isn't the conventional driveway, you're calling the driveway the old dirt road, is it now I'm lost about access right away.
I forget if I called that a driveway or not, but
Yeah,
what
'cause
is
I got it.
currently
No,
a two-track dirt road that leads from Tarkiln Road to both of these sites, that would be the access path for vehicles to enter both of the paved driveways for Lot 1 and Lot 2, is an old two-track dirt sand road. My point in what I said in my staff report was, you're gonna have pavement in the hashed area here and in the hashed area when you review Lot 2, but everything between there and Tarkiln Road is gonna be sand, and my concern would be over time, you're gonna see somebody pave that, and it's gonna be an enforcement issue, or you're gonna need a future filing for it.
Right.
But that part, if you can see right here on the left side of the screen, the wetland A28, and then the other wetland flags up here, at some points, it's only a couple feet away from, between the wetland and the existing road.
Right, but that whole right-of-way dirt road is in Lot 1, correct? That yellow?
Yep, so this is the existing dirt road coming up here.
Right, and the house
Today
is
goes
right
back
there.
to Ojala.
Right, but the house goes right where your finger was, right?
Yep, the house is going right in here.
Yeah, okay. So that could, my point is, that could be a perpetual condition, Matt, that can't, the dirt road part can't be paved, because it is controlled by that Lot 1.
And I don't mean to jump, but I need to ask. So we're coming in from the top right, left-hand side of the drawing off Tarkin, coming down the drop. Just, that's your access?
Yep.
Correct? All right, show me. All right,
All the
come in
way up to
there.
here.
Where's your house?
Right in here.
Okay, and then it continues on to the orange.
Yep, and so this is proposed to be the primary access to both these properties, although he will have.
You'll have to grab the microphone there while you're.
So that is proposed to be the primary access to both properties, although he does have legal frontage on Tarkiln to the south and access.
And then where does that dirt road go to beyond? Is that where Mr. Aldopoulos' place is?
So this continues up to Ojala, 0 South Street, Duxbury.
That's the bar.
Yeah, so back here there is, but so this is, they have the right-of-way easement. I'm not sure if it's his property or not, I don't, but it's,
Rich,
On the Duxbury side.
is that
there
where
a
your
home
house
back there.
is?
Yes.
So you travel that land to
Yes.
get to your house? So the
Yes.
dirt road is your access?
And to get down.
If you
down
want to
my
speak, you
mailbox.
really have to come up and
Oh.
speak into the microphone, or we
Madam
can't-
Chairman,
Yes,
can I request a 2-minute bathroom break, please?
all right.
Point of
let's
personal
take-
privilege?
Oh, and I'm on
Take
the
2
road.
minutes. 2 minutes, thank you.
In this case.
Aldopoulos, could you point out where your driveway runs
Okay.
from?
You. come
Remember
in
to
off
take
the-
the microphone
the
with
mic.
you.
Oh. You come off of the Tarkiln and come up the
Dirt road.
Stagecoach Road,
Oh, come on,
okay?
please.
And we're over in here with the house, about 2-point-something upland, and then it's the cranberry bog out and back. But,
And you have the other access there on the lower part of the
Ye-
orange
well,
area
we-
there that comes out to the road.
right, that's where the town of Kingston, when we were building the bog and stuff, the newer part of the bog in the 90s, they made us get permission from Mr. Loring to use that road to come up because they didn't want us to use that road with heavy equipment and stuff because it was so close. Like here's the ditch to the bog and here's the road, you know. Any accident, and you're damaging, you know, wetlands and stuff. But, yeah, it'd be a shame to blacktop any of that road, you know. We gotta check into it and see if it's historical, because I don't think anyone's mentioned, but they wanna move that road. Or we're gonna be driving right by their living room.
Well, it's a right-of-way, it's not, so they do have the ability to move the right-of-way.
Well, not really, it's.
No, they do.
It's on the maps, it's Old Road,
It's a right-of-way.
and it's historical. I don't know why it wouldn't be on the books.
That's a separate question. From a
Right.
surveying point,
Right.
it's a right-of-way,
Stagecoach
and they
road.
can move it on their property.
They can move.
Okay, Madam Chairman, can we kind of get back to the heart of the matter?
Heart of the matter is whether this,
Well, I'll make a motion
Filing
to
will be
continue this to
continued,
the
or-
next hearing, which is,
We have an item up after the hearings to discuss canceling the second meeting in June. And so everything would be continued to the 1st in July.
all right, I'll make that motion.
I'll second that
It's
motion.
July 10th.
so we have a motion to continue this first, Section A, Tarkiln Road.
Can we ask a
lot
question
one.
first, just to clarify? a
You
few things?
can.
Can
Please
you
do.
actually point out on your site plan where these ditches are? Because they're not defined on our site plans, and there's definitely some confusion on the board.
Yeah, so essentially.
Remember the microphone, Mr. Charlie.
On this property, the blue wetland flags here This is bog 1 here. I'll call it bog 1. This is a bog,
Mhm.
and this is a second bog. So this is kind of upland. You can actually walk right through here. But, so this is the standing water here, and the standing water here, and the old ditch of the bog.
Thank you.
Can you clarify if that standing water is on the property?
Yes.
It is
Yeah.
on your the property you propose to develop?
Correct.
And
Yeah,
this-
the entire property is old bogs,
And this,
and it's historically disturbed.
and this standing water is of concern for future public health issues
Understood, yeah, we can look
on your
into that.
property? On the property you propose to develop, but you don't have any ideas at this time how you might mitigate that problem?
No, essentially, it's classified as a wetland, so what we're proposing is to meet the wetland regulations.
All right, so there's a motion to continue.
To July 10th.
To July 10th, 2024. Have a second on that?
Yeah, I second it.
All right. So there's a motion made by Marilyn,
No buzz.
by Buzz. Okay, seconded by Jim. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Linda's yes. Buzz?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be continued until July 10th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lot
Shall we
2.
move to section B? This is lot 2. Remember to keep your microphone handy.
I can, do we have the cordless mic in there?
You gotta
That should be
open
all right.
Well, we're getting a microphone for the presenter. This is section B. The time is 8:06, and I open a hearing for a notice of intent for the proposed construction of a single dwelling, associated driveway, private septic system, and utility connections. A portion of the proposed work is located within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. And we'll hear from the representative on this.
Thank you. Austin Chartier again with McKenzie Engineering Group on behalf of the applicant, Brownville Construction Corporation. Again, we filed the notice of intent for construction of a single-family home in a buffer zone, as well as Title V septic system, private well, and bit-conk driveway to access the property. So this lot is the lot that I had shown that was in orange on the back here. So the proposed house is going right in here. I won't go through the whole history of the project, but a question that seems to come up is the access through this property. So yeah, there is an existing 15-foot, it's actually an easement, or maybe it is classified as a right-of-way. But there's an existing 15-foot easement. This all came up as part of the planning board A&R filing. We have an attorney that's working on this project that is essentially working on filing those easements and looked at the recorded plan. So the primary access to this lot is going to be through that existing dirt road, through lot 1, onto our lot. As I mentioned, the legal access to the property is on the south side of Tar Kiln Road. So the legal property frontage is down here, making a buildable lot, but we're proposing the primary driveway access to this lot to be through here. The primary access to the Ojala property in the rear is being shifted down to here, and that agreement was worked out between the property owner and Ojala. So again, I can kind of leave it at that. We're proposing the same footprint of house. It's 80 by 30.
Isn't that the lot 1 plan?
Sorry, I was wondering.
There we go.
So lot 2, so this, you can see in gray here, the continuation of the driveway through lot 1 comes onto lot 2 and accesses the driveway on Plan East, essentially. Similar here, we're encasing the property in a silt sock. The limit of disturbance is 17,600 feet, so it's a pretty tight footprint and limit of disturbance. For erosion controls, we have the silt sock, the construction entrance, as well as the staging area and stockpile area for construction materials. Again, very similar, there's a bog on the south side of this house, and that is essentially flagged as the wetland, so that's the buffer zone we're holding there. So we show on this plan the 3 red lines. We have the 30-foot no disturb, 40-foot no stormwater, and a 50-foot no impervious buffer per the town regulations. And that's essentially how we worked this property. As you know, the Conservation Commission does not allow any septic pipes, systems, tanks within a 100-foot buffer zone. So that really dictated where this property line went as we redefined the property. So essentially there's, you know, very limit of flexibility out here in terms of where we could move anything. But I can answer any questions. We did receive the staff report last week, and again, there was an issue, a question about plowing. Our goal is to have everything plowed to the north side of the plan, and as well as the spraying because of the standing water out here. And I'm sure the applicant would be open to a condition of basically everything has to be organic out here. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the commission?
Just same comment about that septic vent. It just is, to me, it's in a dangerous spot.
Same comment as I stated earlier.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear you solve the one problem I have.
Sure.
Yeah, Kalina, I don't know how the commission wants me to handle situations like this. I don't think it's necessary for me to read through all of those. My staff report was almost identical to Lot 2 that we just covered.
I don't think we need to do
So
that.
I have all of the same points. The only thing for me, the snow, I think, was even more concerning on this site based on the fact that that all wraps around.
So I guess my only comment back to Jim and Brian is, just because it's an old bog, it's now a wetland. And if this was a regular wetland, we wouldn't be saying to them, hey, go figure out a way to drain the wetland. Because they can't. So I'm not sure.
Not asking for the drain, is that what you took from that?
Well, that's what you said, yeah. You
Nope,
said
I
get rid of the
said-
standing water.
Well, it didn't say drain it, though. There are other ways that you could
Well,
modify.
getting rid of standing water implies that the water is gone, therefore it's drained.
You can improve drainage. They put drainage into culverts all the time. I mean, you can only do it through a filing, but that would take off that would mitigate the problem with the standing water 50 feet from the house where they'd be spraying. So if you're asking, that's where I'm trying to get them to point to.
Yeah, I understand, but
That's
what
it.
gives us, if, it's no
It was
different
to
than any
them.
other.
It wasn't to you. I'm not asking you to solve the problem.
No, I'm
That's for them to-
asking the question, if this was a regular wetland, which it is now, we wouldn't be saying, hey, go figure out how to make that water flow better because we think mosquitoes are gonna go there.
I'm going to refer that to you, Matt.
Yeah, I would make the point that it's not a regular wetland. It is jurisdictional as a wetland, so like you said, and like I said earlier, we can't just tell them to make a modification to this by right, because anything they do there would need permitting, and only certain things would be legal in that situation, but you can't say that that's a wetland just like a natural wetland is a wetland. One has a healthy, balanced ecosystem, and this one appears to not, because when you're looking in that water, you're not really seeing a lot other than stagnant mosquito breeding habitat. So
Today, right? But
It's a
how long has it
concern
been- How long has
for-
it been abandoned?
I'm not sure, but it was abandoned. That's what you're looking at, is you're looking at an abandoned bog wetland. And that's why I think, you know, as a commission, we're learning over time, at least I've been learning in this position over time, about not only looking at specifically what's in front of you, but looking at what it's going to be. And I think some of the commissioners are good at thinking of those things on their own, about like, here's what I see being a problem down the road. There are a lot of wetlands in Kingston. I don't think it's a good idea to build that close to a wetland, period, but that's the way the regulations are set up. That doesn't mean the commission always has to say yes, right? The way the regulations are worded, you don't have to say yes because something's the structure's 51 feet from the wetland. If you think that that is a bad decision for the health of those wetlands because of what's coming down the road, because of cumulative impacts, the commission has the right to deny a project based on that. That's not what I'm saying should be done right now, but they have the right to do that. And there are legal recourses for an applicant or a landowner to try to get those reversed, to get the value that they want to get out of their property. I think there is a meaningful difference between an abandoned bog ditch. It's not the commission's fault that that qualifies as a wetland, and it may have been a nicer wetland before it was converted to bogs. Right now, I see, like I said, a public health risk being married to a future wetland risk. And there may be a situation where you can deal with that through perpetual conditions and requiring anybody who's going to be spraying on that property to register with my office first. It adds something onto my list of things to do, but if it prevents somebody from spraying pesticides into a wetland, it's worthwhile. I think that might be the point of continuance on this, is there are questions, I think, that would be nice to have a better answer on, rather than just saying, okay, it meets the minimum setbacks, you know, approve this project.
Kalina, may I?
Yes.
So Matt, the wetland, I get. What I'm having trouble recalling from the regulations is the language for riverfront and stream has specific language in it that calls out man-made ditches, do not preclude it from being something. So why is this not an intermittent stream? Is it because there's zero flow all year long and we know that, or?
I mean, to me.
Well, because, let me finish,
sorry,
right?
yeah.
Because I see water in a channel, and I hear that it's going straight into the swamp, or it's hydraulically connected directly to the swamp. That's why I'm thinking here, in the mindset that I'm thinking, versus just looking at it like any other wetland that might see some water sometimes.
You are right, and that when I heard him say the water flows into his bogs offsite in Duxbury, that made me question. But when I was on site for the site visit, again, that's just one day, it appeared to me that there's no flow there. There was definitely no flow there. And there was standing water. Typically, when you have intermittent streams or you have a lack of flow, it's because you have a low water time of year, and you're not seeing flow because there isn't enough water there. When you see water, and there appeared to be plenty of it, just sitting, not finding a level, you know, that to me indicates that that's not functionally a stream. As far as whether the state would call all of those intermittent streams on an ecological restoration project and make you go through extra permitting for it, hard to say. But for me there in the field that day, I would have thought if that was an intermittent stream or should be classified as an intermittent stream, then you would have seen some flow there, and to me there was enough pollen, dust sitting on the surface that you would have noticed flow. I don't know if there's I don't know the full layout of this bog complex. There may be a central ditch that provides more of that flow that may be a stream. I don't know if something like that should or shouldn't be shown on the plan. Like I said, I didn't do a full wetland reconnaissance on this property. It looked pretty simple based on the fact that it was at the edges of the bogs. I can't speak to whether there could be an intermittent stream within jurisdiction here of these two projects. I don't know.
That's my consternation, right, is water on the surface, continue in a channel, it's moving, it's not moving. If the regulations gave wording that it can be man-made, that they're talking about drainage ditches, because we put a lot of drainage ditches in historically in this area to drain it down for the mosquitoes. So at some point, somebody wrote down in the things that we're supposed to review that that's something we're supposed to look at. So from my perspective, I have questions, and that's why I question things, and that's why I ask you to look into it and come up with something that makes me not concerned that you're spraying into a intermittent stream in my head. So,
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion that we, what's the word I want? Continue, sorry, until
July
we do
10th.
lot number one, and do them again at the same time when we've answered some of these questions.
All right, great.
second.
I have a second from Jim? Great. So we have a motion to continue this matter until the July, first meeting in July, which is July 12th? 10th. At 6:45. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yeah.
Paulina's a yes. Buzz?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
And so we will hear you again on the 10th of July.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thanks,
for your
Austin.
time as well. And thank you, sir, for your time as well. And like all the other bills that Kingston gets, it'll sit in the pile. All right, so we're gonna move along. We just have some enforcement matters.
Did you want to finish?
Did I want to what?
Did you want to finish the action items or jump to enforcement?
I was gonna go back to where we were.
It should be under action item number 243 Ocean Hill Drive.
So I'm going to open a public meeting to discuss the certificate of compliance request for 43 Ocean Hill Drive. Is there an agent here?
Yeah, I think it's
I
just.
mean, Matt.
Yeah, I am an agent
I'm
up
Matt
here.
representative. but-
This was a remnant of a subdivision that was not, I believe, properly closed out. Just one of those things that popped up on a title check upon pending sale. I went out and looked, and essentially everything on this project was outside of jurisdiction, except a very little bit of the backyard. I went out and looked at site conditions to make sure that there weren't any red flags. There were none. I recommend issuance of a COC. I have it here for you to sign tonight.
Okay, do you need a motion on that?
I do need a motion on it, but I want to make sure there are no other comments or the public present here online. Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the recommendation, the request?
So moved.
All right, get a second?
Second.
All right. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Clean as a yes. Buzz?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Here, classic. Talk about me jumping again.
Are we,
Number 3, CPC delegate.
no. Matt, you'd like to discuss with the commission the CPC, that's the Community Preservation Committee delegate? What are your comments?
Yes, our CPC delegate, Dot McFarland, her term on her appointment to CPC is about to expire, and the last I talked to her, she indicated that she would still like to remain the conservation delegate to the Community Preservation Committee. That is correct? Dot, you do still want to be the,
I want to be on the commission. It doesn't matter to me if I'm the delegate or not. We have two. I could easily pass the delegate to Brian.
Are we
For you
voluntold?
to be on it, you'd have to be the delegate, I think.
I couldn't be at large.
I don't believe there's a citizen seat open right now.
because Brian's already
Oh, I
on
see.
with them.
I'm on this, I am
Oh,
the
okay.
citizen.
I
All
mean,
right,
we
well,
could,
yeah, fine.
yeah, so if you want to be on, just, I
Yes,
think
I
we
do.
got you, you're on.
Are you,
Yeah.
we're voluntolding you.
Everybody want to vote on that?
Are we nominating her, or are we,
Yes, we're voluntolding.
I'll make that
do we have a
motion.
motion to nominate,
I'll second it.
okay, it's to nominate Dot to the commission, Community Preservation Committee, Commission's delegate. Dot, I'm not gonna vote, are you gonna vote for yourself?
I'm sorry.
Vote for yourself.
Vote for myself?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Why not? Yes.
All right, Jim,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Colina's a yes, Buzz,
Yes.
and Marilyn,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
All right, congratulations, Dot, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dot.
My
And
pleasure.
do you want to make June 26th official?
Yeah, let's do it, we already discussed June 26th, so can I have a motion to
I'll make a
continue that
motion to
meeting to
skip
July
the-
10th?
the June 26th meeting this month.
Second.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to not hold a meeting on June 26th. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Clean isn't, yes. Buzz?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
All right. Going back to enforcement?
Yes. Madam Chair?
The
Miss-
meetings,
It's been a long time, Buzz.
for a long time.
I don't have my usual nighttime driver. I have to leave the meeting. I don't drive much later than tonight, right now.
All
I would be glad to drive you.
Then, but my car is here.
Oh, okay, never mind.
So
All
next
right.
time,
Well, we'll miss you.
Helena will drive you.
Well, next time, maybe I can stay for the rest of it. It depends on what time the sun goes
I
down.
think we're just doing enforcement anyway, right?
We're just doing enforcement, sir.
So you'll be fine. You've heard all the hearings that are out of here. Drive safe.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're excused, Dot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
After we voluntold you.
That's right. You got your job.
All right, did we do Elm Street already?
No, we're starting with number 1 on enforcement.
So that's 556. All right, moving on to enforcement. 556 Elm Street. Matt?
Yes, so, the commission had a discussion, sorry, let me get back into that folder. The commission had a discussion with the owner of 556 Elm Street. This was about the unpermitted dock on Smelt Pond, and the owner was gonna go decide what she wanted to do, basically, because she was told you either need to permit it or remove it. I got an email in early May saying that essentially she tried to take it apart herself, had difficulty, was looking for help with it, and then a storm did quite a bit of damage to the dock, and it was free floating and submerged for a couple weeks, and once the water level dropped, she had some people help her retrieve all of it manually. The dock had now been completely removed, and the site was restoring back to its natural state, and she did send a picture of the area. It looked fine to me. So I told her that this was going to be on the agenda, but that she didn't have to be here, and we would just close it up.
Sounds good.
Done.
All right. You don't need a motion, right?
Don't.
Okay.
How about 28 Rayboth Road?
28 Rabbith, to the best of my knowledge, Rabbith. I don't know if I'm wrong on that, but
Did you grow up here?
no.
Okay, just
And
saying.
I'm not married to anybody on the historical commission either. But I did get a plan from Steinbeck and Taylor. We discussed this at a previous meeting. They were going to provide a restoration plan. I did get that plan. I did give some feedback back to Steinbeck and Taylor about that it had more of a landscape feel rather than a restoration feel. The site has stabilized. I have been out there, not on the site, but the driveway next door leads out to 46 Rabbith, where we currently have construction under one of our permits. And I did notice that the site had stabilized well since the NOV was sent out. So we discussed that a little bit today, and we have a rep here to talk about that.
Want to fill us in?
Hi, Brian Taylor from Steinbeck and Taylor in Marshfield. As Matt said, Matt, great summary. What was asked by Matt on a couple of items on May 22nd, and was since spoken to these items. The conservation seed mix wasn't detailed enough, so I provided today a detail of that planting that is put down, and everything is vegetated really well. That erosion, the jute matting, highly recommend that if you guys have any unstable sites like that one you were talking about earlier today. We use that through winter and through spring when we have these crazy rains. You staple it to the ground, it's biodegradable, stops all runoff, like zero. It's just terrific stuff. It's expensive, but it's worth it. We used about 16,000 square feet of it in this application. Matt and I also discussed the cultivars, the natives. We'd be happy to use and agree on whatever truly indigenous to Southeast Mass. We used the UMass list, but that is for throughout the state, not things that are plantings that are specific to our area. So we were talking about that would be happy to change that planting. The applicant, they're long-term residents of the town, and they would like to do some additional work on the house. They'd like to do an addition. And then, of course, they bought the camp, which we saw on the previous plans, next door, and they haven't decided what it is that they want to do with that. I just wanted to put that on the table because it may affect how you guys advise us to proceed. What Matt had called to our attention is that, it looks more like a landscape plan, which I agree with. I mean, we did very heavy detailed plantings specified, but a restoration plan would be a different configuration. The property lends itself very well to, on the north side of the property, you can see where the contour lines are close together. That's like a 2-to-1 slope. So what we were hoping to discuss and review potentially in the field, I think gives a much better idea of the whole scenario here, is planting a restoration plan on that north part of the slope, the 2-to-1 slope. It'd be a natural place to put indigenous trees and shrubs, and then retain some of the lawn and which is wildflower, or conservation mix, and retain that and some of the more ornamental plantings, albeit they're all or will be all conforming with the Southeast Mass region type vegetation. So what Matt and I had discussed was whether we could do a walk-on site. He's familiar with it because he's coming and going from 46 and seeing it, and the grass is literally a foot high. It's all took very, very well, so we're very stable. So.
Yeah, if I may, we discussed today, and I mentioned that I've never actually been on this site. This was just an enforcement thing that I saw on the way to 46 Rabbit. So I thought a site visit might be a good idea in order to have a better idea of how to proceed. There's definitely been, obviously, an unpermitted expansion here. There was an enforcement issue with an immediate need to take action. They've taken action. Now it's a matter of where does enforcement/restoration end, and permitting for any landscaping that they want to do or any modifications begin. And I think being on site might be helpful for that. So I think we should continue this to I don't know if you would think
Can I ask a couple questions
early
before
July
we
or
do that?
later after that.
Yeah, a couple of questions from the commission.
Yeah, so, so number 28 and number 30 are owned by the same person?
Yes, sir.
And where would the proposed addition be to 28 or to 30?
I don't have the plans on that. What I had suggested to my client is I said, what we should do is we want to be forthcoming with the commission, so anything that we're going to have on the table that you guys are thinking about, let's consider that. And my client said to me, well, are we going to wrap this up first and then do that? I said, I don't know. I said, I want to put it out to the commission, and then I figured once Matt and I did a site walk, that would give me time to get any sketch plans of what they have for an addition. I think it's a kitchen addition, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, my 2 cents speaking for myself, if you are planning on doing additional work that's gonna require NOI,
okay.
I would like those two things to come together myself, so that we can deal with it, especially where the site has been stabilized, so we can deal it all with one. I know it's two separate issues, but we can deal it together, so we're not doing this and then you coming back and say we want to do this, and then we're ripping things out and changing things. I want to understand that globally understand 10 years from now you may want to do something different.
Yep.
But for today, and I appreciate you being forthcoming about you want to do something, so let's deal with it in its entirety and get the best we can get out of it.
Absolutely. We tell our clients
One man's opinion.
Anything you're going to do in the next 3 years, we should get on now. Otherwise, yeah, I agree.
Let's hear what Matt has to say on that.
I totally get that point. Where I would hazard on this is that we being a commission, not only constituting who's sitting here, but who sat here before, have run into several issues with dealing with enforcement issues that then wrap into permitting issues and then not actually following enforcement pathways. And that comes out in two ways. One is the enforcement never gets done. The other is the enforcement follows a order of conditions timeline. So I would just say that's fine as long as on a shorter timeline, I think it's important to figure out what needs to be restored for, you're talking a very close area to Smelt Brook right there. And I would say it's stable right now with essentially grass, I think. I haven't reviewed fully the mix, but essentially it's stable with grass. I would think regardless of what they want to do with their house, you want to see some sort of definitive restoration of whatever, like I said, like they said, and like I've seen, that existing traveled way, that was a dirt/grass 2-track leading out to that shack. So you're not you know, including that in an area they need to enforce, but you may be looking to have the area right up to that traveled way restored, and that, I think, is what a site visit would help to suss out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. My only caveat to that would be that, you know, I would, even if you could just show a sketch of where you're going in the future, maybe we don't have the filing yet, but we can just keep it in mind when we're planning what we're doing. And I agree with you, the stuff, especially, I'm gonna call it to the left of the road, the way the plan's drawn, the stuff that's closest to the, is that a river, or what is that?
Smelt Brook.
Smelt Brook, so, you know, that side, obviously, we need to pay special attention to. So, I think we're saying the same thing. I said,
I agree.
if you could get it on paper, just even a sketch of roughly where you're going, and then we deal with this, maybe we can wrap it up, and then make sure that we don't box ourselves in for a proposed whatever.
Okay. Yes, sir.
My recommendation, as long as nobody objects to it, would be to continue this at least to July 24th to allow time for a site visit and then for them to work. I mean, if you
Are
think.
we all going on a site visit, or just you?
That's up to, I
The
mean,
more the merrier.
I would plan on just doing it with him, but if the commission wants to go and see the site, absolutely.
I would,
Yeah.
if I can, I would like to go look.
I would like
Anytime
to
I can get you all out on site, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Your nose is getting longer. So anyways, I would like to attend if I can.
Okay.
So if we could do it like in an afternoon, like, you know, I don't know what time you knock off of work, but, you know, if we could do it like at 4 o'clock or something, yeah.
Do you guys have a day of the week that you?
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays? Tuesday afternoons? Okay.
Okay, so we'll have a site visit on a Tuesday before July 24th, and we'll pick this matter up at that
Outstanding, thank
meeting.
you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And good evening to you. And we're going to move on to 11 Worth Lane. Matt?
Mary Hill, 11 Wharf Lane.
Sorry, Mary, give me one second. You looking for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to just a little synopsis, and then you
Gotcha.
can talk to.
So, just hearkening back to a conversation a long time ago, because we continued this for lack of sending a notice of violation, and then we continued it from having to cancel the meeting. But this was the Braintree Ave issue that I presented to the commission for 2 Braintree Ave and 11 Wharf. There being a stormwater issue there, and then review of aerials showed tree clearing on both properties and some unpermitted work on 11 Wharf. There had been some unpermitted work that predated the current owners that has since been sort of done away with, and there was a new set of unpermitted work in the form of, you know, there was tree clearing, there was a creation or conversion of a lawn area or area under where there were trees to a gravel driveway for parking vehicles, and I couldn't tell the extent, but some modification to the lawn. You know, the neighbor had initially said that 11 Wharf had all filled in their lawn. What used to be wet was not wet, and now all the water is going onto their property. All I was able to confirm was they did add some loam and overseed, but I didn't and can't really see evidence there of anything beyond, you know, minor lawn repairs. So similarly how we dealt with it on 2 Braintree Ave, there's unpermitted work. That leads to some enforcement. I did a site visit with the Hills, and we kind of walked around and talked about property management when you live not only next to wetlands, but next to the coastal bank. The usual conversations about not cutting shrubs and things that are growing on the coastal bank, transitioning areas like that into deep-rooted native vegetation for protection of your property, for protection of the coastal bank. And yeah, pretty much that's why we're here. I can pull up some pictures and things like that if the commission has any specific questions I can answer. If you want to hear from Mary, she's here.
Ms. Hill, you want to address this?
Sure. So my husband Jeff and I purchased property in July of 2019. We didn't move into the property till March of 2020. As far as the tree removal, one of the things that Matt educated us about was when a mature tree is removed from a property, it's responsible for several hundred gallons of water at any given point in time. The area in question is kind of in the back of our property. It's not near the water. Over the last couple of years, we removed one mature maple tree, but within the 25-foot area of where the water is percolating out of the ground, it's not running off, it's percolating. There were 3 mature trees removed by other people, not by us. When we removed a driveway, a gravel driveway in the front of our house, because we no longer had a garage. We converted the garage to a living space, and the driveway was right in the front. So that, unbeknownst to us, not knowing that we needed a permit, put it in the back of the house. It's graded towards Wharf Lane, so it had no effect on the yard and the water in the yard. At that point in time, we also removed, there was a low depression at the back towards Braintree Avenue. When we went to level out the yard, we discovered that there was a decayed tree stump in there, not a tree that we had taken down. So when we removed the tree stump, we leveled the yard. We brought in, literally, I have all the receipts from the work done, 28 yards alone, over a 120 feet by 30 feet area. So it translates to about 2.5 inches of loam, and then we hydroseeded. That was in 2022, so that was 2 years ago. This past winter, the end of February, beginning of March, our neighbor at 2 Braintree Ave approached us and told us that, there was an issue with water running, in between our properties. We observed it. It kept raining. We did a little research. Since December, we've had, at that point, up until the end of March, over 20 inches of rain in our area. So my husband had gone out to try to dig a French drain to alleviate the problem, and discovered that the water table was not even an inch below the ground. So yes, we agree that tree removal has caused a major problem, and it's a dilemma. But the dilemma now is that our property line butts the neighbor's driveway, and there are deciduous bushes all along the property line. So, and we have this mature maple that's probably within 10 feet of the property line. So we're kind of like, we want to fix the problem, we want to deal with our neighbor in a neighborly way, but what is the answer? I'm not really sure. Like Matt said, we can plant a tree, but it's not going to grow to a mature level in a short amount of time. So.
Yeah, I think it's important, and just very quickly, I can run through what I just pulled up here. So this is October 2016, long before they owned the property. And this right here was an unpermitted, I believe, gravel driveway that was put in very close to the coastal bank, which is right here. You have Kingston Bay right here, Salt Marsh, beach, all of that. Then October 2021, I believe after they bought the property, you can see that's sort of been taken apart. It actually looks like a construction site right now. It looks like maybe a dumpster right here, or hard to tell.
Yeah, that was when we were converting the garage.
Definitely work going on there. And you can see that that's no longer gravel there. They've removed that. So not ideal. We would not want to see that on a project if you have permitting, but again, we're past that now. At least being able to do, something about controlling that. And then at 23, you see here's the new gravel driveway on the other side. Oops. So, yeah, you see a lot of trees go away over that time period from both properties. Even on 11, you see in the 2016 imagery, you have trees right there on the coastal bank, and those are gone. And again, I don't know if that may have predated them buying the property. You can't tell, but either way, The condition now, not good. But I think it's important. I know the neighbor, Don McCauley, is here. He's requested to speak tonight. He sent us some materials that we can pull up on the screen. Just where I would hazard the commission here is that, you know, when I first reached out to 11 Wharf, I let them know, if you need to do anything to satisfy your neighbor on a stormwater issue, it needs to be permitted. The commission right now is dealing with unpermitted work in jurisdiction. I forget if I just said it 2 seconds ago, but essentially the entire 11 Wharf property is within jurisdiction between all of the different resource areas, including land subject to coastal storm flowage. So what you're looking at right now is a series of unpermitted work that has led to detrimental effects to the resource areas, less stabilization of the coastal bank, less uptake of stormwater, all of that. You know, we dealt with it with the neighbor. The issue was, okay, you cut some trees down, you're essentially planting some trees back. You know, I don't want the commission to think that they're responsible for forcing 11 Wharf Lane into fixing a stormwater issue on the neighbor's property. Don can speak to that himself, but I have no proof that what they've done on 11 Wharf caused water to go onto Don's property, and I don't want the commission to feel like they're responsible for enforcing that. We deal a lot with neighbor interactions, and every time we get into one, I tell people we don't get involved in neighbor disputes. If there's a wetlands issue, we look into it, because we look into every wetlands issue, and that's what we did in this situation. It turned up to have a wetlands issue on both properties, which I don't think is terribly uncommon. But I think, you know, you'll hear what Don has to say. I'm not sure exactly what he'll present, but I just want to caution the commission on what would be, in my opinion, an overstep of forcing one neighbor to fix an issue for another neighbor. There may very well be an issue that was caused at 11 Wharf causing water to shed off. They may end up being responsible for doing something about it. They may work amicably on that. They may not. I just don't want the commission to be legally a driving force behind that when there's no, in my opinion, clear proof that that's what happened. Like I stated, if there needs to be a solution on 11 Wharf Lane or 2 Braintree Street to deal with runoff, it would have to be permitted, because it's going to be in jurisdiction essentially regardless. So that's what I have on that.
And so you're saying basically it's up to them to hire the pros to plan?
I say there's an enforcement issue in front of the commission for unpermitted work in jurisdiction. I believe that the McCaulays have claimed that the filling in of the lawn or the raising of the lawn at 11 Wharf has caused stormwater to enter their property at a higher rate and enter the bay, which essentially would be in itself a wetlands issue, because you're now taking whatever's on those lawns and putting it into the bay directly. But there's not what I could not find is a direct causality. You have heard them say that they did put down loam and seed. I just don't have the ability from aerial imagery or anything that I had available to me to show that their filling of however many inches of their lawn that they did directly caused that runoff. There, like I said, weeks or a couple months ago, there's very clearly a stormwater issue there. In my opinion, and I'm not qualified to legally say one way or the other, but the loss of all of those trees on both properties is a major reason why, in addition to the increased storm intensity, which I keep saying now is the new normal, that's what we have to deal with now, is what I could see to be the issue. Again, I don't want to get in between and make an opinion one way or the other and say they didn't do something that affected their neighbor. That's not for me to decide. I don't think that's for the commission to decide, at least based on what's in front of us for information. Both properties had unpermitted work. Both properties, in my opinion, need some sort of enforcement for that. And whatever the enforcement should be, in my opinion, would be something that helps with the situation on the property.
Matt, if I could interrupt you for just 1 second. I do have surface pictures. I've been out of work, but I did compile them, and I know there's no way that I can get them up on the screen, but this way you can see that there's really not a huge difference. The first pictures, and they're labeled, they're dated, from 2018, and that's what the trees look
Just
like.
hold off for a second on talking until you can go back to the
Yep,
microphone so
sorry.
everybody can hear
I
you.
always forget that.
Me too. Thank
And I've been here for a couple meetings now.
Yes, you have, thank you.
So the first set of pictures is an aerial view of the trees looking from Braintree Avenue at the corner of Wharf Lane. And that's the house across the street from both Macaulay's and us. The second picture you can see,
Wait, before you go on, so the brown roof is what address?
the brown roof is 2 Braintree Ave.
Thank you.
So to the left of that is 11 Wharf Lane. You can't see the house. The second picture is, again, taken looking down towards Braintree Ave in the corner of Wharf Lane. And you can see the trees across the street that are no longer there. There are also the trees in 2 Braintree Ave that are no longer there. The trees that you see on 11 Wharf Lane on the corner are still there. Those were not removed. The third picture is actually the corner. That was taken in 2019, and that's the corner of Braintree Ave and Wharf Lane. Looking down, you can see both 2 Braintree Ave and 11 Wharf Lane, and the trees that are there. The next picture is the tree that we removed on the left-hand side. That's a maple tree. The rest of the trees that you see on the right are still there. The next picture is a surface picture looking from 11 Wharf Lane towards 2 Braintree Ave, and that's the side property line. The next picture was taken a couple of days ago from almost the same site, and you can see that there's not much of a difference in the height of the yard at all. And then the last pictures actually show the property line where we are, and the driveway to the right is 2 Braintree Ave. And that's the property line, and that is the level of the yard between both our properties. So, as I said, it is a dilemma because we need to fix it. I mean, the water's coming out of the ground, it's percolating out of the ground. I know it's not as severe as it was over the winter because there's more vegetation there. But there's no way where it is on the property that it can be drained anywhere. I mean, there's no place to put a French drain because it's on the inside of the property. You're talking 30 to 40 feet to the outside of Wharf Lane. And you're looking down from Braintree Ave. So water can't flow up, it's only gonna flow down. And that's, I mean, the whole neighborhood, if anybody is familiar with Grays Beach Road or Wharf Lane, you're going downhill. Braintree Ave, every time it rains, there's an issue. I mean, there's a storm drain there that the water, and a catch basin, the water never goes into. It just pools in the middle of the street. Again, you know, it's a highway problem. Macaulay's last week had the highway department come out and raise the berm on their driveway. So it is a problem, and I understand that, you know, from a conservation point of view, but where we are and the way the water flows, I mean, we cannot control Mother Nature. So I'm open to, you know, we've already talked to a couple people about different trees that we can plant there. But again, it's not going to, you know, solve the issue right away.
If I
Yeah, go ahead.
may, yeah, I'll just say that, again, I don't think we want to get into whether the Hills did or didn't shed water onto their neighbor's property. I think, I know Don wants to speak, maybe we can hear from him, but I think when it comes to looking at 11 Wharf, we have to get back to that there was unpermitted work, both by the previous homeowner and the current homeowner. There was just, I guess, what you see sometimes as, I guess, on both properties, not necessarily both properties, but in a lot of the cases that we see for enforcement, sort of a, well, I didn't know, you know, and in a lot of this property, the property was modified a long time ago. It's not like we were looking at, you know, people encroaching on a naturally vegetated area and destroying it. It's simply trees, shrubs, all of that become a lot more important in these coastal areas. So I think, like I said, I think maybe we want to hear from Don and see what he has to say, but I don't want to get into, you know, the commissioner being the determination of whether or not one property affected the other based on the information that I've seen before. We want to look at an enforcement answer.
Right, we're staying away from cause and effect and focusing on what precipitated the enforcement actions. Is that what you're saying?
I would say, I mean, if Don makes a presentation that makes the commission look and say like, yeah, very clearly what they did caused runoff to go onto their neighbor's property and into the bay, that's an enforcement issue that we would make them fix. But I couldn't see that for myself being on the ground or in conversations with either party or in anything I've seen for imagery, photos, all of that. What I do see is clear violations of the regulations that need to be addressed either through, I would say, the enforcement process, but also permitting in retro. If you want to put in a gravel driveway, you need to have that permitted. It's not permitted. You know, you can take enforcement in a situation and require mitigation, or you can just require that they file in retro, and when they file, you could require mitigation. One way or the other. What you want is you want something that builds stability for the resource areas. Like I said before, planting trees is fantastic. I recommend it to everybody. If you're looking for it to solve stormwater problems, you're looking 50 years. But, like we talked about a lot, every time we have a coastal project, the first thing I say, do you have deep-rooted native vegetation on your coastal bank? If you don't, you should. You know, and I think we talked a little bit about that on the Macaulay side, and it was a discussion about whether something like that was an overreach when you're talking about just a couple of trees being cut, and I don't want to make that sound small, because one of them is very large, but was it a direct connection there to the solution? So yeah, I think I would recommend that we kind of, to move this along, hear from the abutter and then discuss what it means as far as what should happen next for enforcement.
All right, so we'll hear from Mr. McCauley, and then we'll hear back from. Thank you.
Don, do you want me to pull up the PowerPoint?
Yeah, yeah.
Is this a new PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's on the OneDrive.
So I'm Don McCauley, 2 Braintree Avenue. And actually, we're in agreement on a lot of what Mary said. Absolutely, in that front area of her yard, as she mentioned, there was a depression where the gravel driveway that exists now is prior to that being created. There was a driveway in the front of the house, right, which they, I guess, stopped using because they were redoing their house, which came out beautiful. It's great. During the time prior to the driveway being created, the reason why I say that there's runoff, and I'm not looking for cause and effect here. I mean, like, I can tell you and show you pictures of the cause or the effect at least. But the removal of the depression in the front yard, the raising of the loam, stopped the water from going down on the side where they have their driveway. They used to park where their son used to park their car. He was living there, and it would just tear up it would be just covered in mud. Now that you can park a boat and a truck there permanently during a rainstorm, and it's high and dry, right? So they raised one side of the property and got rid of their water problem, which I'm thrilled for them. But on the opposite side, where we never had a water problem, the water is percolating out of the side of the loam, where
it used to go on the other side of Wharf Lane. So that's the only reason why I brought this to, first to Mary's attention, and her husband Jeff, and then, ultimately came to the commission to say, what am I left to do here? Because really, I'm sitting here saying, my hands are tied. We are downhill, right? As are the hills. Absent me just going in there and raising my property, which, would probably kick water onto the hills property, that's the only place it would go. Or creating some kind of a storm drain that it goes down into the bay, which I don't think anybody wants. If, Matt, you can pull up some of the pictures that I have, or that I sent you. We're talking about a significant amount of rain and runoff. And, where we had the trees removed on our property is actually on the other side of the driveway. And actually, Sean, I spoke to, is it Sean, the foreman in the highway department?
Yes.
Yeah, he remembered coming out and taking down the tree by the road. And that was one that we were, that was on our property that was contested. But when I went out to him to say, hey, look, there's water now, I'm noticing some water coming in off the road, he's like, we could put a berm in. I was like, I think I remember you. And he's like, yeah, I came out to your property with the guy from the tree removal service, and we took down that tree. So, do you have the PowerPoint?
You want the PowerPoint or the pictures?
Oh, yeah. So that's, if you go back to, I had it, if you wanted to use the PowerPoint, it's in order as to, what we have, in terms of the side view of the driveway during a rainstorm versus.
If I move this, it'll be, come on. Zoom on.
It should be a PDF.
It's working with the Zoom thing in here. It's
the worst.
So under enforcement, there's no folder for 2 Braintree Ave?
11 Wharf.
No, there's.
Not for this meeting.
Just for this meeting.
This is 11 Wharf.
I understand, but he's saying there's a PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, it's
Under 11 Wharf.
It's in 11 Wharf.
That's what I'm
Is
asking.
this the screen?
Nope, it was the one that I sent you,
What's the title?
prior to the last meeting.
Macaulay presentation.
No, it should
No,
be.
2 Braintree driveway and backyard PDF.
Yep. Yeah, that's the one you're looking for.
It's under enforcement, under 11 Wharf Lane, Braintree Ave, Wharf Drive, additional materials.
Additional materials.
Yep.
Sorry, I was on the other Macaulay
Yep.
presentation. So you want the PDF?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, page 1. How's that?
Yeah, good. So if you go to the next page, I think when we start the pictures of the, so there's the approximate location of the new driveway. 11, that area where the second arrow is pointing is the change of the topography of the front yard of the Hills property, which she mentioned. There was a depression in probably the middle to front part of that would fill with water. And when we talked about it, and I totally understand and I totally appreciate it. Mary had said we were getting mosquitoes. We wanted to get rid of mosquitoes. Totally understand. And then if you go to the next picture, you can see our driveway actually on the map. If you scroll down, right there. Yep. So that's the driveway, which is directly abuts the property line, to their front yard. So this is that's the water that's coming off of the front yard, right along the side of our driveway. That was taken back in March during one of the rainstorms. This is how it collects towards the bottom of our driveway. Again, abutting their property, not abutting the side where, there was a tree taken down in our front yard, but abutting right there on the, right before the arborvitaes. And then it trickles down through, through a brick walkway. Understanding and appreciating that the topography of my driveway and the walkway doesn't help the situation. I totally get it. So if you go down to the next photos. This is during the last rainstorm, where we've now taken to putting sandbags out to try to block the water from going down the brick walkway. Again, I hope you guys understand this is a lot of water. It's not just, this is not just like regular runoff. And, it floods at the bottom, it slowly trickles out, dissipates along the, if you're looking at this, the left-hand side of the walkway into our yard, which is fine because it'll then settle down, and then, but a lot of it's still just coming down through the, through the cracks of the sandbag and down the brick walkway too. And when you flip to the next set of pictures, you can see it coming down, how it's basically just runs down the driveway, pools right out in front of our house. The middle picture is probably the best indicator of that, where you can sort of see we probably get about 4 inches of water just pooling right there. And once that fills up, if you go to the next pictures, it floods underneath our deck. So you can sort of see that second thing there. And then once the deck fills up underneath there, it flows right out through the backyard and into the bank. So, again, I don't know cause and effect either. I know that prior to them changing the topography on their front yard, we did not have this problem. I appreciate that we're getting record rainfalls now, and I actually even appreciate the Hills last week offering to figure out a way and a solution to fix their front yard, and I genuinely appreciate that. I don't want to have any animosity with our neighbors. I don't want to have any animosity with the commission, but the only reason why I bring this up is because this is a lot of water, and it's I think it's absent a site visit during one of these rainstorms, which I'm not asking you guys to put on ponchos and come do. I think this sort of hammers home what kind of water and impact that these changes to the topography of the land have had. Again, if you look at come out during any one of the rainstorms, and Mary, you can attest to this as well. The cars, the boats, nothing's sinking down in your gravel driveway, but it used to, and now we're just sitting here taking a lot of this water. So
yeah, honestly, I feel like we need a site visit because there's too much to try to do from pictures and everything else.
I don't disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, where this gravel driveway exists now, was it lawn or was it leaf litter? What are we talking?
Right?
So it was grass.
It was
lawn.
Yeah.
It was lawn
just
under a tree.
depression, and it had.
There was a decent-sized red maple tree there.
I
So
understood
now,
about the
no,
tree.
you're getting, what I'm saying is it was lawn underneath a decent-sized red maple tree. So now, sort of to Don's point, when I click through the 2016 to 2021 imagery, by October 2021, the large tree in front of Macaulay's house is gone, and that large red maple tree is gone. It does not appear that they have yet filled in lawn and put in the gravel driveway. I don't have an exact date on that, but
That was June of 2022.
June of 2022. So, I don't know. Like I said, again, I personally think that the commission needs to look at the enforcement in front of them, which does involve all of those things, other than identifying that what you're seeing in those photos of runoff from the driveway is strictly because of what they did on that property. And I don't want to discount it either. That may be true. It may have been caused by them. I just don't want the commission bogged down in that. So there's significant unpermitted work on 11 Wharf Street.
Site visit.
Was there work across the street as well from Braintree Ave?
There was. Yes, but
Did they change considerably into pavement out front of that addition they put on there?
Who are you asking about?
Are they pushing water from across the street? Is there water running down this driveway? Plus the
Is
water
who
that's
pushing
going-
water down the street?
Is the site across the street, there's a big tree that came down there, it looks like, to, where's the water?
Both properties are on the same side of the street, I'm confused.
no,
A third
no.
cross their house.
He's saying across the street from my driveway, the neighbor's house there.
Okay.
So
Well, sorry, then what was your question there?
Just going through the imagery, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Existing house, big tree, new construction, I don't know, right? I'm looking at Google Street. It's dirt. I expect it's pavement. Is it pavement across when you pull out your driveway? If you're looking across in front of that double garage, is there pavement there now?
Yeah, there is now, yes.
And that's probably sloped to the street where there's probably so much going on there that I don't think we're ever gonna get to the bottom of it.
And you don't have
I
to.
think that their
Yeah.
dispute
Yeah, we
needs
don't
to
have
go their way, right? Go settle it amongst yourselves, come back when you need to do the work.
Right, and I didn't want to make the case that Dawn is coming here saying that the commission needs to. I just didn't want the commission to get bogged down into thinking that's the purpose of this. The purpose
Yeah,
of this
go ahead.
is enforcement action for unpermitted work in jurisdiction. That unpermitted work in jurisdiction may have caused or added to stormwater that they're taking off there, but to your point,
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
everybody who's cut a tree in that neighborhood over the last
If they have
couple
to, it's a neighborhood
decades
dispute, it's not us.
has caused,
Right.
or paved anything, has caused stormwater runoff, and a lot of those aren't in jurisdiction.
Right. When you just disrupt the flow of water anywhere, it's going to find the path of least resistance. That's what water's always going to do. Unfortunately, it's coming down your driveway now. Where it's coming from, if it's hers, if it's a guy across the street, none of us on here, it's not even in our lane. If you think that there's a issue because of we need to re-permit, permit in retro for the gravel driveway, and if you think that there's a problem, then I want to hear, okay, maybe that's wrong. Maybe they changed, maybe they filled the depression that is causing problems, which goes back to go talk about it in court. It's not ours to solve. But if you think that that's leading to an issue where the water's going and running down into the bay and it's causing a problem just because you put a gravel driveway in where, she had some here, she lost it, and she put it over there, okay, fine, let's talk about it. If you think that because they cut trees that they need to go back with trees, I'm all for it. But I definitely don't want to get even wade into this where's the water coming from thing, because just in 3 seconds, I'm looking at a couple of pictures, and in the past 10 years in that neighborhood, a lot of trees have disappeared. Everybody's seemingly improving views, and I get it. If I lived there, I'd probably do it too, but there's cumulative effects that go on, which is why we kind of have this thing, because we're supposed to look at this. And when somebody comes in and they cut down trees, it's a cumulative effect, so there's enforcement, and we say, do this, do that. That's as far as we should really be going on this. And I don't
Right.
want to weigh into the water, I don't want to say where it's coming, where it's not coming from, if you guys want to settle it. I think you need to go settle it, arbitration, mediation, whatever you need to do, but we should only be talking about, you cut trees, you put a driveway, let's talk about it. Fix it, plant them, do whatever we need to do there, but the rest of it is very convoluted, and there's no way we're solving it.
Right, I think Matt explained that.
Yeah, I
That
think
as
if the
well.
rest of the commission thinks a site visit is in order for something like this, so that they can see the site and see where the unpermitted work is, what the unpermitted work was,
It was
where
just-
there may be availability for restoration or any of that, that's definitely easy enough.
But that would be the focus.
Yes.
Is it the commission's responsibility to tell the homeowners what they need to do, or do we give them instructions to hire someone that can help them develop better landscaping to mitigate the problem? I know in the last case, we told them plant these trees.
Right.
Is that what we need to do?
I think
Sometimes-
I think it's an important distinction that we allowed them to kind of say what they wanted to do, and
Right.
we agreed that it was okay. We
We
never.
don't draw up the plan.
Yeah.
Correct. So in every situation, the commission is mandating what needs to be done when it comes to enforcement. Sometimes it's as simple as, you need to file. If you don't
Right.
file by this date, you're gonna get daily fines of $300 until you do. In other cases, it's, you need to submit a restoration plan.
designed by a qualified wetland scientist, and we need it by this date, or we're gonna fine you $300 a day until you do it. In other cases where it's a lot simpler, it's been simpler stuff, like stop mowing behind that line, or else we're gonna fine you $300 a day, or make you restore the area if you keep mowing it.
I mean, I like the idea
You
of
cut a
seeing
tree,
them.
plant a tree. Sometimes it's simple, sometimes, but it's always the commission saying, you have to do this by this date, or else there will be consequences, because that is the way that things get done.
I'm not sure if a site visit is necessary. I'd just like to see them develop a plan and mitigate. Give them a date to submit it by, and then we can vote on whether or not it solves the problem.
For the unpermitted work
driveway,
only,
not the flooding.
right?
Or staying
Moving
out
of
of
the
that.
driveway, cutting of the tree.
That's up to the commission. You can either require measures to counteract the unpermitted work and still require permitting and retro for the unpermitted work to include the gravel driveway. So this work encompasses everything that was done, anything there that modified, you know, would technically need to be permitted. Now, some of it you could say might be borderline, like if you're just, you know, overseeding a lawn and you're adding a tiny bit of loam, does it need a separate permit if that was the only thing that's being done? Debatable, but when you're talking about a lot of loam, absolutely, because you want to make sure none of that runs off when it rains, all of that. All the cutting of trees, everything is something that fits under enforcement. I think you could either say we want to see a filing by a set date, and that filing needs to not only include the unpermitted work, but a plan for mitigation of that unpermitted work, or you ask specifically for those things separately.
And when notice is sent, it says specific unpermitted work identified, unpermitted work, number 1, number 2, you know.
Often on an enforcement order, yeah.
Right.
On a notice of violation, I tend to keep them vague, but on an enforcement order, you're typically spelling out what was done.
And we give them a date certain to return with the plan.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm leaning.
And that's what we want to do here, right?
That would be my suggestion. Just give them some time to put together a plan. Make note of all the changes that they made that weren't permitted and develop a plan to.
Because I don't think we have to come on Friday when it's going to rain like hell and see
I don't.
your house floating out into the bay.
The
you
lazy
know.
river?
We have a million pictures, I think.
Mhm.
And I agree with Jim. I don't think it's the commission's responsibility or authority to decide where the water's coming from.
Yes, true. Although it is a story worth telling, and I'm glad we heard it.
So
But it's
that's
not a
my,
problem for us to.
Is that a motion?
Unless, I don't know if there's other commission comments?
Any more?
Well, I'd like to ask the applicants, the 2 people, if it's okay if I just swing by there someday and walk it.
Sure,
Thank you.
you're more than welcome.
To tell you the truth, you can see all of it from Braintree Ave and Wharf.
I'm asking to.
No, I know,
walk
I'm
the
just,
property.
I'm just letting you know, I get
have 2
it.
people that nodded their heads that I can. That's
I
what
get
I
it.
was asking.
I was just letting you know, it is very
That's
easy to see.
informed consent right there.
All right, so what's the motion that we're looking for?
That's up to the commission. I think what Brian was looking for is to see,
I'd like to make a motion that the Hills, how did you word it, Matt?
Well, are you looking for an enforcement order so then we can?
Yeah, but an
Take some
enforcement order
steps.
that includes the steps that they took that were unpermitted.
so you basically, you're asking for an enforcement order to be issued that's gonna describe
Right.
the unpermitted work and require corrective action, which
Yeah.
is going to include either formal filing that not only deals with unpermitted work, but includes mitigation measures?
Correct.
Or
Yeah,
you're
I'm more
asking for
interested
those
in the
things
mitigation measures, but that's just me.
So am I.
Right, but without a clear statement of what the unpermitted work was, then
Right.
mitigation can be
Right, we'll do
very
that, that's no matter
haphazard.
what, every time we send an enforcement order out, it's gonna have that straightforward, it's just a matter of, do you want to ask for strictly mitigation, or are you asking for filing and retro and having that filing
Yes.
contain mitigation? I think regardless,
the mitigation work is gonna be permitted under an enforcement order
Right.
that's issued after that.
Well,
So-
filing in retro, I think, is necessary.
So then I think it's easiest to require a filing in retro with mitigation measures by a date certain. It's just a matter of what that would be. Yeah.
How long do you normally give them? A month?
I think it often, and Buzz may be able to weigh in on this, I think it often takes a while to get somebody to put this stuff together.
Right.
Looking into
Well, we don't have a
August.
meeting till a month anyways, so.
Right.
Well, we can give them until the following one. or
Or put
into
it on and
August.
see if they can make the date.
Yeah, if they don't get it done, that's fine. Push it off.
Yeah, they can always ask to continue.
But just with one proviso with that, Brian, is that what we've seen over time is these things drag out for
Right.
years. So,
I was thinking-
respectfully request that we wrap it up in 2024.
I would suggest maybe,
Second.
I know it takes time to
No,
put
no, I
these
agree.
sort of things together, so maybe instead of saying, like, and I think that there's,
I wanna
my
just-
office deals with the enforcement follow-ups, and it's often very difficult, and the more we kick things down the road, the more difficult it gets. I would rather see something like September, and just say, come to us with a
And when I say
plan for
wrap it up,
filing in retro
it's done.
and mitigation by September, and if it doesn't happen by September, then the commission takes enforcement action. And if they've taken meaningful steps by that point, and they're almost there and it's not quite done yet, and they come in and say, can I please, 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 please have more time, then I think that's better than trying to hold it up at an earlier
So
date.
who's gonna roll that all up into one big motion?
I nominate you.
Just for, because now
Come on,
I
you
feel
take
like I'm.
notes.
We are
Just
in
do
the
it.
middle of a motion, so you have to hold on, please.
And we're
I'll
What
make
if we all
make
take
a
a piece of
motion,
it?
what Matt said.
I think what you're looking for is you're looking to issue an enforcement order requiring a filing in retro with mitigation measures for, restoration measures to mitigate the unpermitted works effect on the wetlands by September, whatever the second meeting in September is, first meeting, what do you want to do? First meeting in September.
First.
I'll make that motion.
Is the
So
mitigation
issue
measure
enforcement
part of
order.
the, enforcement order?
The requirement is for a filing
And
that
requiring-
not only deals with the unpermitted work, but wraps in the mitigation
Restoration.
measures, which will then be permitted under an enforcement order.
To be permitted under, as part of the enforcement order, right? To be permitted with the NOI. file.
Further, we'd issue 2 enforcement orders. We're issuing one right now that mandates that we need to see a filing, and that filing has to contain mitigation. Then, that filing, assuming that everything is good with it, gets approved under whatever mechanism it is. If it's an NOI, it's an OOC. If it's an RDA, it's a DOA. And the mitigation work gets permitted by an enforcement order, and the purpose for that is that it sets a date certain that mitigation work is gonna happen, whereas if it's a DOA, OOC, you have 3 years to get the work done, and we run into those issues when
All
you do
right, so
things like that.
let me regurgitate that from my little brain and make sure we're on the same page. So this is what I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like the two of you need to engage a professional to figure out a problem. Because Matt is mentioning, hang on,
This has nothing to do with 2 Braintree, what I said.
No.
This is
Well,
11 Wharf.
There's only 11 Wolf that's here in front of us,
Right.
so
Talking
it's,
about
it's a
the
pickle.
enforcement
Yeah.
well, they both have enforcement orders, correct?
Correct, we've
We've already
already
dealt with
issued the enforcement order for 2 Braintree, and you guys just ratified it tonight by signing it.
Thank you.
So all we're dealing with right now is 11 Wharf enforcement.
All right,
Whatever
he's
they're
gotta-
gonna do for.
He's gotta sit down then and she's gotta stand up.
Okay, whatever, just for the record, whatever, like was said a few more times, if they need to communicate or do whatever they have to do to deal with any legal issues as far as whether one is causing water on the other, that's separate from this, that's on them. And if any actual work and jurisdiction needs to happen because of whatever the answer is there, that will need to be permitted. And that's totally separate from what we're doing right now.
Okay.
So may I recommend that you, that we make a motion that you issue an enforcement order identifying the unpermitted work, requiring a retroactive filing, and requiring mitigation measures to be permitted under the enforcement order and completed by September 2024.
The filing completed by September.
Correct. We need to have a filing submitted to my office in time for the,
First meeting in September.
so that's a good consideration. Are we talking about having it on the first week of September meeting? Because we have a 3-week information receipt policy, which would mean they have to have
Okay.
everything into our office
All
by.
right, so I would say it needs to be filed by September 1st, let's keep
Okay.
it simple,
Perfect.
right?
That's
We
a
can all
Sunday.
remember that date.
That's a Sunday.
Sure.
All right, September.
Brian, come on, and the second is Labor Day. Can we say
August
by-
30th, August 30th, August 30th. It's Friday, August 30th.
Okay.
August
Cross
30th,
out
thank you.
September.
But just, so, I want to explain to you what we're saying, though. Are you clear on what we're saying?
I'm pretty clear.
Okay.
We wanted
Call
to
Matt
make the
later.
step,
Yeah,
the steps easy to follow.
Call Matt.
Now, for just a clarification, what I didn't say and what I didn't hear the commission say was that they need an NOI. That's up to whoever's putting this plan together has to assess what the plan is, what the regulations are, and they're welcome to contact my office and ask me my opinion on
Yeah.
what they show me and
Whether
say,
it
do you
needs
think we need
Well, we
an
don't know
RDA or
yet.
an NOI? But basically what we're saying is it needs to be permitted. And if it can be permitted through a DOA, fantastic. If not, if it needs an OOC or an NOI to get, that's another.
Don't worry about that.
So I just want that to be clear now, unless the commissioner has an issue with that. I don't want that to become problematic down the road. If it fits an RDA, then in my opinion, it should be fine to see it as an RDA.
All right, so let me unravel that. So no, seriously, I want to make
Wait,
sure.
did we ever second this motion before we?
Well, we want to get
We
the
still
the
haven't-
motion
Yeah, I
to
think
be
it's
clear.
important to.
We
deal with
haven't
this one part.
made, no one's made it, it's a motion, but it's still active. And I just want you to understand that you're going to require professional help to do this.
I'm not sure what it is that I'm requiring professional help for unless I see what it is that.
Exactly.
I understand, but I'm just telling you that's where we're headed at this moment.
So then I guess I don't understand what that means.
I-
Like, professional help comes in a lot of different
I
forms.
understand. What we're essentially saying is, to solve your issue, you're gonna need to demonstrate to this board how you're gonna solve that within our regulations. And there's several ways you can do that, but you're gonna need someone that's gonna be your representative to do this.
Again, I'm not really sure what the issue is, so until I'm clear on that and I know exactly what it is that we're unpermitted and it's laid out for us, then I'm not,
Well, we're not gonna
I
get-
get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure what professional help I'm gonna need until I see what.
Okay, I just wanna be crystal clear here that we're not gonna lay out every single infraction that we think happened. We know unpermitted
So are
work.
you saying that I'm gonna need a lawyer? Am I gonna need a engineer? Am I gonna need, this is where it's confusing to me.
And that's why I'm bringing it up.
That's where just sorry to jump in on this, but that's where I wanted to talk about the specifics of what the commission
Correct.
wants to see, because
That's why I'm
you don't
bringing this
need
up.
an engineer for a DOA filing. The commission may want to see a plan, but it doesn't have to be a survey grade
Yes.
plan for every RDA filing. An NOI, absolutely. That's where I think
So what,
if it can fit an RDA,
but who's gonna
Great.
decide that?
the commission ultimately decides that. If they file an RDA and it's insufficient, then they
Seems
have to
like a
file
first, a
an
good
NOI.
first step.
But that's why I asked the question now, because if the commission feels like there's absolutely no way that this is gonna get through with an RDA, then that would be good for them to know now, because that is
That's
gonna cost a
Exactly,
lot more money.
that's why I'm bringing this up.
I don't think it's necessary in every situation. I don't know in this situation if it would or wouldn't be. I think the enforcement, let me split this again. There's two things that we're asking them to file. One is unpermitted work. The unpermitted work, from what I have gathered, consists of
essentially, the creation of that gravel driveway is the biggest ticket item. The other things are tree removal, just vegetative management, and changing the lawn, right? So the other part of that is the mitigation work, which is gonna be permitted through an EO, right? And I think
Which
that,
stands for enforcement order.
sorry, yeah, enforcement order that, mandates when that part of the work needs to be done by. I think having a wetlands person put something like that together is a great idea, and it doesn't necessarily need to be on a survey grade plan for every enforcement issue. You can have robust enforcement without it. It can be protected by conservation posts if necessary, and you get your restoration. I think if you were looking at whether a gravel driveway with tree clearing could be permitted under an RDA versus an NOI, I think in a lot of cases, yeah, it would. And I think the closest unpermitted work that's non-vegetative was the gravel driveway that was installed before the current owners bought the property. And they did convert that area, I think, to lawn, or that's what it appears to me. But again, I don't think that I saw anything there that I think would require an NOI. The other side of that is DOAs aren't put on your deed. So when you have things that are gonna be done that you really wanna make sure that is done the right way or it could become problematic, you probably want an order of conditions recorded on the deed. In this case, the work that they're permitting through that is already done.
Right.
So I don't think
So
you have that need.
my strong suggestion as one member, with this needs to be done on an NOI so that the existing conditions can be documented, the plan can be evaluated, what needs to be done, and then when it's done, it can be signed off by this board that is completed, and then it'll become part of the record. So that the next commissioners, 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, have a plan of record to go back and look at and say, hey, this was what existed in 2024 after the repairs, and you did X, Y, Z, and now everybody knows what actually happened. That's my 2 cents.
If I could just, may I?
Yes.
All right. So you asked about professional help, right? Engineers will go out, they'll survey the site, they'll tell you exactly if your water's going on his property or if there's water's running down the 2-car paved driveway. That didn't exist like 3 years ago. It was grass, right? The driveway was across the street. It might be that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, right? If you talk to an engineer and get a survey and a survey grade engineered plan, you'll at least know that whatever you're doing has merit to it. Otherwise, you guys are gonna be stuck in this, it's not enough, I need more, and no one wants to see you guys argue with your neighbors. Go talk to a professional. That's the best
True,
advice
but
I
that
can say.
has nothing to do with this enforcement order.
Nope, that's my advice, as somebody who works in that environment every single day.
But,
Talk to an
but
engineer.
Buzz is suggesting that I need to find, or when the enforcement order comes along, that there's gotta be some professional. So you're talking apples and oranges, so I'm kinda like,
No,
we're going in two
I
different
don't- we aren't.
directions.
Yeah, we definitely aren't talking,
Can I-
like, I'm just saying in general, from a 50,000-foot view, you really need to talk to a professional so that you can at least get a path forward to whatever you guys are working on. We don't have anything to do that. We're just talking about a plan for an NOI, because whatever you're gonna propose is within all these jurisdictional areas. So there's so many little fingers, because you got two, 3, 4 properties all on this little tiny parcel of land that was just set up as cottages. Everybody's moving things, all the water's gotta run someplace, it's running. There's an issue, you guys brought it forward, it created an enforcement action because we see that there's non-permanent work, we see that there's tree removal, we see there's gravel drivers. Our zone of influence is those items, and that's what we're talking about. You guys are close enough that I think what Buzz was saying is that he's going to wanna see a NOI. Buzz, was that what you were saying?
Yes.
And that's basically because there's a couple of different paths. There's the most formal path, which is an NOI, and then there's a RDA, which is a less formal. Like if it wasn't exactly located right where it is, you pick it up 3 miles there, and there's a little wetland over the side that's not really impacted or of main concern of all these confluences of resource areas coming through, like what you guys are actually experiencing. So he's saying, he'd like to see an NOI, and he'd like to see the plan, just so that it's all taken care of. Because we know that when it goes through that process, at the end of it, it's gonna take into everything that needs to be taken into consideration, and the end of it's just gonna be a definitive path that we're all gonna walk to together and get there. And then it's just done, and there'll be a plan on record, and,
Gotcha.
okay?
Can I, briefly?
Yes.
Yeah, I totally get that, and it's every commissioner's decision for how these things are handled. I think that I would just say in this case, personally, I think that we can get compliance here and a path forward without requiring an NOI and simply requiring a filing. Especially based on the fact the work is already done. The site is not, again, a site that wasn't developed to begin with. I think typically, if somebody comes forward and says, hey, I want to put a gravel driveway where my lawn and a tree is now, even in a coastal bank buffer situation, I don't think that we're requiring an NOI on that. So I suspect that through this process, they will need, regardless, professional assistance, because we're going to require a professional wetland scientist to put together whatever is the mitigation portion of this. I suspect that they'll be able to put something together robust enough to protect the resource areas, and I would suspect that there won't be further issues on this property from this landowner, and having a plan of record to refer back to, I think it's not terribly difficult based on aerial imagery now to see changes on the land. I mean, that's really how we got here is, when somebody reports something, the first thing I do, I open up the aerial imagery and I go back through the years and look, was there a recent major change? And I think, especially with the condition of the property now, it's open enough that you're gonna see a major change like that. So I'm not trying to say, don't say NOI, and I understand why you're saying it. I'm saying personally, I don't think in this case it's 100%.
Let me just pile onto that. So other than the monetary consideration for the applicant, which I totally get.
Right.
But we didn't start this.
I get it.
Okay. What is the reason not to do the NOI?
I don't think there's a reason not to do the NOI from the commission standpoint. From the commission standpoint, if you got an NOI on every filing, that's fantastic. You got detailed information, you got an engineer putting their stamp on it, saying this is exactly how I say it's gonna be. You have things on the deed, so you have guaranteed performance, and you have the COC process. When we issue a DOA, see ya. In a lot of cases, I try to follow up and make sure things are done right, but there's not the same checks in place. I think in a situation where the work is already done, a lot of the benefit of that is
But my point would be just let me interrupt you. My point would be, I know the work is done, but my firm belief, my hallucination is, there's gonna have to be some regrading and working for all this to work out, and that's gonna require some yard work.
But you're talking about the water issue, or, because what I'm talking about is enforcement.
I understand,
so
but in order for them and all
that
this to work, I
needs
understand
different
you don't
filing.
wanna wade into that, but let's be real world about what's gonna have to happen there.
I mean, if you want to postpone this until they figure it out on their own, and they may need an engineered solution that's permitted separately, you can do that. But if they determine among themselves that there's no real issue there, then we're going to be back where we started down the road. I think you deal with the issue that's in front of us right now. And like I said, if they figure out that there is an issue there that needs to be dealt with, that needs an engineered stormwater solution or a regrading or something like that, they have to file that. And at that point, the commission determines whether an RDA is sufficient or not. But that's, to me, separate than what we're looking at right now. We're looking at unpermitted work being permitted in retro, combined with the enforcement process requiring mitigation for that, protecting the resource areas. And so it's just my belief that we can get there through the RDA process to get meaningful restoration, better protection for the bay and all of the resources areas that are associated with it, without needing full NOI package. That's my
I agree.
feeling.
I think that we need not address the larger issue now. It is a larger issue that will need to be addressed and may be expensive and complicated and who knows. But I think that we should move with Brian's motion.
Put this on me.
Well, your motion was well put.
Yeah.
It was succinct, it's consumer friendly. Let's get that part done, and then there's a part B, perhaps, who knows? So, the language, did you come up with language of your own on that?
I mean, I scribbled down what we talked about earlier.
All
but
right, do you
essentially
have language to
What we're
propose?
doing is we're issuing an enforcement order
Yeah.
for the hills at 11 Wharf Lane, mandating filing in retro for unpermitted work after detailing what that unpermitted work consists of.
Mhm.
And we want that paperwork in by August 30th into the Conservation Office. And it is to include a plan for mitigation for the unpermitted work prepared by a professional wetland scientist, which would then be permitted through an enforcement order, a future enforcement order. That's your motion.
So moved.
So, okay,
Second.
we're gonna have Brian make the motion, because I'm not sure Matt can make the motion.
All he did was say so moved, so he moved.
Yeah, okay,
That's
so
the
moved.
motion.
And you
So I'll
second?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So, Dot's gone. Jim?
I would like to ask to open it to discussion just on that motion, just,
Mhm.
which we're allowed to do.
Yeah, second for
After the
discussion,
second,
so-
it's open for
After the
discussion.
second, it's open for
Second for
discussion.
discussion, so rock on, let's go.
Yeah, so Buzz, I just want to touch with you on this one, just because he said to be permitted by an enforcement action.
I said my piece, I think we're headed down the wrong road, they know where I stand, I'm only one member.
My concern, there was a concern, my concern was that we always, during this process, it's coming back to us, if it's not something that we're comfortable with, that we can
Yeah.
agree that it's a NOI filing. Am I wrong in assuming that?
No, absolutely,
Okay.
so she can spend the money and all the trouble to come back and file on August 30th, and we can review it and have this meeting, and we can all say we don't like it, go back and fix it. And all I'm saying is, talking real world, that the two of them need to get together, they need to figure out where the water's going. That's gonna require an NOI from somebody, and that all needs to be done once and be done right.
Possibly. We don't know that.
Listen, I've seen a lot of water.
Yeah.
I don't need to really go out there to know what's going on, but it's gonna need to be addressed, and that's gonna require some regrading.
And I think you said it, I said the exact same thing. You guys have some.
But if you guys wanna
ancillary
rock on
stuff,
with
we're
that,
only talking about this.
if you wanna rock
Still
on
a
with that
recommendation.
version light, let's rock on.
All right. So we have a motion, it's been seconded. Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Kalina's a yes. Buzz?
I am gonna vote no to that.
Okay. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
And that motion passes finally. You will see it in writing.
Okay.
I'll be sending you that information. If there's any confusion, you got our number.
I know where you live.
Walk you through everything.
Thank you both
Thank you both.
very much for your patience and for your courtesy.
Yes.
3 more.
Really?
Nobody's here.
Well, we're just 56 Main Street, moving on to that.
Well, somebody's on.
Thank, would you have your pictures back?
Night.
No,
Thank
you can do those.
you.
All right, am I on 56 Main Street?
Mr.,
Yeah, just,
Walking
because you
Road,
guys had
26
something on
Walking
for
Road.
2 Braintree Avenue, which is another.
not tonight.
No,
not tonight.
no.
That's not on the agenda one.
No, it was just signing a piece of paper.
Oh, that's it?
Oh, it was
Yeah.
just them ratifying the enforcement order that I already
Okay,
sent to
do
you.
you need any pictures? Like, it's all been done. Do you
No.
need pictures that the trees are in and?
Sure,
We can't-
email them to me.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
All
we
right.
personally can't handle that tonight.
Okay, no, I understand. After all this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. 56 Main Street?
Yeah, we don't need Megan
They're
back
on
for this one.
Zoom.
It's only enforcement anyway, so you don't need a quorum.
Yeah, they're on the next one. So 56 Main Street is just an update. I did go out, this is the one where they were gonna dig holes supervised by me in the area to see if there was a wetland filled. I went out there, met with John Zimmer and the owners of the property. They had already dug a couple of holes at the lowest point of the parking area and had hit, they went through pavement on one of them and they hit pavement wasn't easy to get through in the other ones. I saw what was the old paved area there, didn't need to see any more with that, didn't immediately see wetland soils beneath it, and if there were wetland soils beneath it, they'd be historic. We located the site on the plan that looked like there had been a wetland. I had them dig there. They dug by hand, dug about 3 feet deep down to what was rock. It appeared, I didn't see anything that approximated wetland soils. I felt like the depth that they got to was appropriate and that we would have seen something by that point. And I just said, okay, I think we're done here. So I can't come back to the commission and say absolutely 100% there was no filling there. There could have been. We reviewed what we needed to review. I didn't see anything. We moved on from that. They will still need to file in retro for the clearing work that they did behind that. If the commission wants to set a date for that, they could do that now. They could do it at a future meeting if you tell me to continue it.
No, I'd like to set a date.
Okay.
I think August 30th
August
seems to
30th.
be a popular date right now, so that would be my motion.
I don't think we,
Second.
do we need a
Second, yeah.
motion on that? Do we need a motion for that?
Yeah. Yeah, we want to make sure there's a filing by August 30th.
Got it.
So, okay.
Next.
Next is 26.
Motion with the second.
We have a motion
sorry.
by
Me?
Buzz, seconded by Jim. Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
I don't know what that was, so I'll abstain.
Kalina says yes. Buzz?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And 26 Wapping Road.
Yes, we have Adam and David Galambos. Sorry if I butchered the last name. These are the owners of 26 Wapping Road, which is that Caton Connector building that is built right on top of the Jones River.
Oh, yeah.
We got a report of unpermitted work down there. I went down to the site and there was a machine working right at the edge of the wetland. There was some wetland vegetation ripped up, a couple of trees had been cut down. I stopped the work. They were looking to repave the driveway, which required kind of ripping up all of the old asphalt and everything. And what they were looking to do was to reestablish an old fence that was there. There was a chain link fence crumbling into the wetlands and woods. So I told them about the need to file. They are working on a filing right now. There were concerns related to, basically they were supposed to be here for the late May meeting that we had to cancel. They were about the only thing that was going to be on the late May meeting that was really time critical and important. They had already, not realizing that they would need to file for resurfacing pavement, they had already scheduled everything, including booking the company that was coming to do the work, and including renting parking space for employees off-site, and a lot of their employees had already taken vacation time for that time period so that they wouldn't have an interruption. So their plan had been, under my guidance, to come before the commission at the second meeting in May and explain themselves, apologize, and say, please, 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 if we go forward with this work and file in retro, are we looking at huge enforcement or not? So when we had to cancel the late May meeting, I reached out to them and just said, I can't tell you what to do. All I would suggest is that, and I had said the same thing at the site visit, if the work goes forward, make sure your erosion control is tight. I explained both in the field and by email how to do that, and they're here tonight. So if the commission has questions for me, I can pull up anything you want to see. And
So
I forget if I just did say
I
this,
guess
but
the first
they are
question,
working
I
on
guess the
filing
first
retro.
question, is the work done?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. May I have the floor?
Yes, it's Mr. Gallavos?
Yes, yes, ma'am. My name is Adam Longos. I'm the general manager of Jones River Realty Trust. We own and operate all buildings within this park that we're discussing tonight. It's a pleasure to meet you guys. Sorry this is going so late, but yeah, the work is completed as of right now. The site is fully stabilized in areas that are depicted on a map that I submitted to Matt. I'm more than happy to screen share it if needed, but the work is completed. Paving is done, it's all repaired, it's properly stabilized around the edges that were disturbed, and erosion control was placed. Approximately 850 feet of erosion control was staked along the edges of the work areas that we knew needed to be placed, but then with Matt coming in, highlighting the areas that were subject to the 500 and 100 year floodplains. That was, I believe, and also there are portions of the 200-foot riverfront that the clearing of the vegetation, which would be the southern end of the subject building that we're talking about, which is our garage area, we call it. It's also known as Building 6. However, that's our inventory area that we established for our defense contracting for the U.S. government. And the work that gets conducted in this business park, like Matt said, is pretty time sensitive. So the work that was scheduled to be conducted, we had to stop all the logistics in and out of the park, and also manage the 40 or so employees and all the tenants of the park to not access the area during that time. So the opportunity to come before you had missed us, and also on our end, I think that we now know what the resource areas are that are within the local jurisdiction and local bylaws, but in addition to what we have interpreted from public data, because we don't yet have a really good understanding of where the 100-foot buffer is, because it is set back quite a ways. But the site visit was helpful to understand where these buffers are that are around the garage. Now, I'll say this, if I may. The impetus for this work was driven by the nature of our work. We're held to a higher standard of occupancy and storing and warehousing of the goods that are inside the building. And we're subject to this audit that gets conducted. And we were flagged for invasive Virginia creeper, as well as other species, multiflora grows in particular, that were completely encroaching and growing up into the eaves of that building, and also up the electrical service entry pole. And I've attached some pictures that you guys can view as well. But that whole perimeter, the rear perimeter, I should say, that's abutting the meadow or the adjacent lot. I believe that's lot 48. I don't have it marked on this map. But nonetheless, the buffer around that structure needs to be established, or I suppose reestablished, because at some point it was cleared, but we haven't touched any of the vegetation around that garage in many years, and well before my time in the current role that I'm in right now.
I can just quickly share a picture where he's talking about. This is looking away from the wetlands. The wetlands are off to the right-hand side of the photo. The building that he's discussing is on the left. Most of the wetlands issue was behind me, but looking forward, there's that whole field. There are wetlands on the other side of that. A lot of the site is in jurisdiction. They explained all this to me in the field, and my take on that was anything you want to do here for property maintenance that is in jurisdiction, roll that into the RDA, get it established. And that is what they're working on right now. I do just want to clarify that Virginia creeper is not technically invasive. It's a beautiful native plant, a lot of value, but bad for when it's growing all over your infrastructure. So, yeah, they are working on a plan right now. They've been in contact about some of that stuff over the last week or so, preparing the plan. So as far as, mandating a filing, I would ask that we hold off on that so that it saves me from writing the enforcement order, because I believe that they are imminent in providing it. As far as what the commission would want to see, if the commission would want to take enforcement action, or if they just want to see mitigation on or through that filing, that's where we're at.
Commissioners?
That sounds like it would be sufficient.
Yeah, good with that.
And I meant to clarify one other thing here. I think the issue was the DEP wetlands layer shows the wetlands significantly further away from where this picture was taken than the wetland line is in reality. So it's not so much the difference between the state and local jurisdictions, it's that the DEP wetlands layer is just a suggestion, and the reality is sometimes very different, and in this case it is.
Ground truth. Ground truth.
So I'd like to hear from, I can't read his name, Adam? So, Adam, so you are currently in the process of filing with us?
That is our intention, those are the actions that we're taking. I've got some folks contracted. I'm also fairly skilled at this work myself and some other folks that we have close to us. Now, I guess the area where I am going to need the most assistance from those folks, and Matt, your offer of continuing to be a resource to us is very helpful as well. But understanding the variation between the resource area boundaries of what is on the layers of maps that you had and that are available publicly from SGIS, but nonetheless are not actually flagged or delineated within the past. I think I've heard you mention 3 years is the acceptable term. And our intent is to get that work scheduled for the future. I'm not here to bring up work that is not subject to our discussion, but Matt, you and I, and also other members of our team have had discussions dating back quite some time about the other work that needs to get done, considering the dam removal that we participated in on the adjacent side of our property back in, I think it was 2013. So the continuation of that and the next journey of that work is going to be expensive and time intense. I'm sure we'll see you folks quite often, but there is quite a few improvements that we do want to make that will ensure that the wetland complex is protected and prioritized, but moreover that we're creating proper sort of boundaries and understanding or delineation of where these resource areas actually are versus what we see here. So that work for the RDA is in motion. I can't really put a date on it just yet, but if there is a date that's being proposed by the commission, I'm sure that it will be able to be accommodated. However, the level of detail as far as that buffer, I'm afraid that the ability for me to take the layers as they appear and then go out there underneath an RDA is going to be what is needed. So that might take a little bit more time to actually go and delineate this work or these resource areas. But the way that I have interpreted the, I guess you would call it the disturbance area, is delineated in red on the map that I prepared. The area that we're looking at is within only the 500-year floodplain for the disturbance area. It's right to the southeastern corner of the garage building. And I don't know what that calculation is just relative to what's on the ground, but I was able to measure it to be, I believe it was less than 75 square feet that was disturbed right where that picture was taken at. But obviously, and what I just explained, the work did continue up along the garage and then south, heading south along that fence line. There were trees that were removed, there was vegetation that was trimmed back, and the parking lot edge was preserved in place where it was before, but that strip that was disturbed, that calculation, I assume, is what will be subject to that mitigation effort. I assume it would be a one-to-one at that area behind the garage or something, but as long as I'm able to establish that buffer, I'm not sure what it's technically called, but the proposed vision would be that there's some sort of safety prioritized as far as accessing around the building, as well as not having the time, father time take over and have all the veg sort of pushed up against the building, the vines growing up like they had.
So when can we have a filing?
Can I ask Buzz a question on that?
Sure.
I'm not sure if what was just presented, if we're talking about a wetland delineation or not.
I don't know, honestly, you have an enforcement issue. It sounds like you're expecting a filing. I heard eminent, but I didn't hear it's coming. Eminent could be 20 years from now, it could be 2 months from now, right? So I want to be clear on what our expectations are so that 2 months from now or a month from now, we're discussing this and we get back to eminent and maybe and not sure what we're doing. So I want to lay out a clear path for everyone involved that says this is what we expect, and then for Adam and his team to say we can get this done by X amount of days or months.
Right, I thought, based on email communications recently, that it was more imminent, and I was trying to save myself the hassle of having to write and draft a third EO.
I don't know that we need it in writing, I'm looking for a commitment.
My question for you was, I mean, if we're waiting on this and we get one and it doesn't include a delineation in that area, I don't know that it's meaningful, correct?
Well, again, look, if he's got it in works, get it in here. So I guess the question back to you, lobbing the serve back to you, when can we get what it is that you're planning on doing?
Yeah, I can have that well before that August 30 deadline. So if about that would be heard for the, I believe it would be the September meeting. If there's a need and a drive to get that done earlier, I'm more than happy to push our vendor as far as I can to get that delivered well before that.
So we're gonna give you an August 30th deadline. If you're in early, great.
And if it's in early, then it would need to be submitted for the July 10 hearing, if I'm not mistaken, Matt, that would be the 19th of this month for the 3-week submission timeline, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's coming up quick. Again, once you get it in, then we'll get you on the docket.
And the August 30 deadline, that's the submission deadline for what's the date, the set date for the actual meeting?
We don't have that 100% yet.
Okay.
So
It would be the second meeting in,
it would likely be the second meeting in September.
Yeah.
But that may or may not be accurate. So that's
Correct.
the hard deadline.
yeah. The
If you get it in
deadline is
earlier-
for August 30th filing, and then we'll get you in the docket as soon as we can.
That sounds great.
So
Now,
that's my motion.
it sounds like I'm issuing an EO on this.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you need a motion to issue that EO?
Do you need a motion to issue that?
Sure, why not?
It doesn't hurt. You're gonna ratify it afterwards, but it doesn't hurt.
I'll make that motion.
All right, you want to iterate your motion?
I'll second it.
The motion is that we need the filing by the 30th,
Of August, yeah.
August 30th, excuse me. Thank you.
We have a motion to, that the filing will be received by this office by August 30th, 2024, made by Buzz. I have a second, Marilyn. All right. Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Kalina's a yes. Buzz? It's your motion.
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes. Did you do your yes?
And Brian?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you all, appreciate that.
Now we're going to 375 Elm Street.
Indeed. 375 Elm Street, this is Jeff McKinnon's house. We dealt with it last year with the cutting of vegetation and the skidding of the path within about 40 feet of certified vernal pool behind the house. The only action that the commission took was the issuance of an enforcement order
that required restoration of the disturbed area.
Yeah, and we had some pervious paving too in the pool area.
Different scenario, that was order of conditions,
Oh.
NOI. So for the, strictly for the enforcement, it was, I believe, we had a restoration plan prepared by South River.
Logging road or whatever it was.
There's like a trail behind the house, and basically it was cleared, skidded, all that.
Yeah.
So what happened was, the enforcement order stated that the restoration must be completed by November 30th, 2023. Otherwise, daily fines would be issued. That never happened. That's on my office. We had some technical issues, and we didn't realize that date had gone. We didn't follow up until Juliana was reaching out about the orders of conditions for the property not being recorded yet. Mr. McKinnon replied by saying, A, that work hadn't started yet on the order of conditions part of the project, and that he wasn't aware of anything else besides needing to record the order of conditions. I said earlier tonight when discussing 19 Kingston Street that I met Mr. McKinnon at 19 Kingston Street looking at the water issue there. Before I left the site, I just asked him, I said, I know Juliana followed up with you about your house with, you know, the enforcement order. Are you clear on that? And he said, no, not really. I didn't really think there was anything there. I mean, I didn't even cut any trees. And I said, well, there was an enforcement order issued. You're required to restore by November 30th, and that wasn't done. We were supposed to start issuing you fines back then, and we didn't do that. So he was told through email and verbally that this would be discussed tonight under enforcement, specifically for 375 Elm Street, and I don't think he was in attendance tonight. I figured it's important to bring back in front of the commission. He told me in person, you know, I didn't even cut any trees. I think the area's grown back fine now. I don't think anything's necessary. And I said, well, you were issued an enforcement order, required a certain amount of work. The work hasn't happened yet. I can't solve anything for you, so I would recommend you get back with your wetlands person and then get back in front of the commission. I said, but that's going to be discussed on, you know, it was supposed to be the second meeting in May, it got pushed to tonight. So I don't know. I apologize for not tracking that better. We should have just started issuing fines on November 30th, and then if he wanted to fight the fines, he could do that. In fact, that's what's happening with the fine for the $300 for the admin enforcement on 19 Kingston. We're going to magistrate hearing on that. So I don't know. I don't have anything good to pitch to the commission other than restoration work was supposed to be done. He was in attendance here during those meetings, and then now has no recollection of any of that and didn't do the work. And as far as whether or not it actually needs the work now, I think I can't speak to that because I'm not on site. And there's the other side of that, you know, enforcement is used to compel action, and when that action doesn't happen, I mean, I think it's bad that people get away with that when other people don't.
Did he install his pool?
I'm not aware that any work has happened in the backyard at all.
Is this the restoration plan?
South River Environmental?
Yes.
Yeah, May 20th.
Yeah, to my recollection, it was basically just hand planting
Yeah.
of some stuff, and I think putting conservation posts maybe.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a planting list in the back.
Yeah. So basically, none of that happened, and supposedly none of anything to do with the order of conditions has started yet, so also the order of conditions hasn't been recorded. Which I don't think is really problematic. We reach out to people and remind them, hey, you don't have a recorded order of conditions yet, and it's been a year since you got your permit, but if they don't do the work, really, it's just the enforcement
We can't compel them to, if they're not doing the work, we can't compel them to record it.
Correct. Yeah, and like I said, that's the only reason why we sent that email out, and we ended up finding out that not only was none of the enforcement work done, but he didn't remember it.
Well, I mean, it's clear that this needs to be done, so.
Like I said, I don't know. I mean, if he can make the case that the site is completely fully vegetated now and healthy, then maybe the commission deals with that a different way. I don't know. But I told him I wasn't making that determination.
that he had to get together with his wetlands professional, but I also told him that this was gonna be discussed tonight. He's not here, so.
Right.
Issue the fine.
So, yeah, whatever you want to do is fine with me. But at a minimum, we need a letter from South River Restoration as to, you know, what's going on the site and
Well,
what.
have they even been out? since
No,
they got this?
an update.
Yeah.
They need to go and look and say, this is what we see and here's what we recommend. And maybe it's the same exact letter, or maybe it's, hey, this little part grew in, but you need to do this, or maybe it's all, I can't believe it's all restored itself in a year, but miracles happen.
Right.
So.
Issue the fine.
Can I make a motion?
You don't have to ask
You don't have to
permission,
ask.
you can always make a motion.
All right, then I make a motion to issue a $300 fine for lack of compliance with the enforcement order.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. Second.
Is it one fine, or is it?
She, well,
One
her
fine.
motion was one fine.
One
May
$300
I-
fine.
Ask a question, or,
Yeah, we can discuss it.
so, that's one thing, and I
Mhm.
think that the commission has every right to do that in this situation. I think if the commission went retro to November 30th, we'd have serious problems.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it was my department's responsibility to make sure that that was complied with at the time.
I
I will
would-
add, it's also the
It didn't.
homeowner's responsibility.
No, but I mean in terms of like, if we're gonna issue fines starting November 30th, we gotta start issuing them November 30th. We can't
Right.
do it in retro
Yeah.
down the road.
I
But
would agree.
Yeah.
issuing a fine right now, I think is appropriate, should be upheld by a magistrate upon
Mhm.
review. If it's not, it's because the magistrate, like sometimes happens, doesn't understand what we do. But a second component to this is, I think I heard Buzz say he wants something, whether it's a new restoration plan, whatever it is, we'd have to issue an EO for whatever that is, so.
I don't think we need to go
We
there
could
yet.
do
Issue
it
the fine and
one
give them
motion
one
at a
meeting.
time.
Yeah.
You know, but.
I actually think that there's a benefit to issuing the fine so he's paying attention, and then tell him what.
Right.
Okay, and here's the next step. You want
Right.
this letter from wetland scientists saying that.
Or we just say, go do what's on the letter.
You can go.
I'm fine
from-
with that too.
Mm.
But if you guys want a letter, I'm fine with the letter. If you say, we already pointed you in the direction, we're reminding you, here's your one fine that you didn't do it yet, and we'll be in discussion again, and we want to see some movement. But I think you guys should put something, not just one fine, because it's not over. It's
Right.
one fine,
It's a beginning.
get it in gear, and we want it done by what?
Well,
When do you want that work done?
It depends upon how we word this. I mean, here's the plan. I would think we would have him contact the person who did the plan, go out and evaluate the site, compare it to what should have been done, and see if there's more work that needs to be done.
I think
I'm fine with whatever, so.
Clean to Marilyn's point, you issue a $300 fine, you send out an enforcement order that mandates that we have an update letter from a wetland scientist regarding the restoration plan and the current condition of the project by a date certain. And at that meeting, we're able to assess and discuss. And if what comes out of that is, you know, everything looks like it's mostly restored, here's what it needs, then that's what you issue. If everything looks fine, then everything's fine. And if you want to go in a different direction from there, you go in a different direction. But I think mandating that plan when that plan was made for a year ago,
Right.
and some of the site might have reestablished, is probably
But isn't
not
that-
as valuable as having him have the wetland scientist come back, assess not only the site, but that plan, and come up with a plan of action based on what's on the ground right now. The $300 fine is the penalty for not having done it. If we were tracking it better, we would have issued daily fines until they did the work and we're done with it, and apologies for that. But I think that that would be a good way forward, is to issue the fine and say by set date, you need to have
Second motion.
an update from a wetland scientist.
Friendly amendment to your
Yep.
motion. All right, so would you be open to the one fine and then moving with Wet Maryland
You mean incorporate the second piece?
Incorporate.
Of the letter to come,
So you would accept that?
All of the above, yes.
okay.
We'd just like to see that happen rather quickly, though.
Yeah, well,
Within the.
put a timeline on it, right?
Not much sooner than August 30th, like.
Because you want
by
to
the
work
time-
with us.
Right.
By the time of our next meeting, and so if we don't see anything in the next meeting, then we issue another fine.
Yeah, because our next meeting is canceled.
Isn't
so
Right,
we
he's
have
got
to get
time.
some off,
He's got
right?
30 days. Oh,
Right.
just about.
I would say that for what we need here, short timeline is fine.
Right.
You know,
So
if it's,
by our
if it's
next
John, John is gonna be able to get
Yeah,
on the
he's
site,
good.
take a look at it, and get a
Yeah.
letter together relatively
3
quickly. We're
weeks
not looking
before our
for a
next
whole
meeting,
thing.
whatever the requirements
Do you
are.
need 3 weeks on that to receive a letter, just showing that there's something? Because, I mean, you're not
When's our next
reviewing, you're just,
July.
I would say we want the letter in 30 days, and then where it lands, it lands.
there you go.
Yeah, we
I
can-
think it would be beneficial to, for me anyways, to do a site visit before whatever that commission meeting is.
Mhm.
I would like to see it before 30 days.
Eyes on it would be good.
Our next meeting is July 10th, so,
30 days is just half.
If we gave it until July 15th, I'd have time to review and do a site visit before the second meeting in July.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, 30 days.
So what's the language of the motion and the amendment?
Yep.
We have a motion and
$300 fine.
There was already a motion and a second on the
Yep.
$300 fine,
Well, we
correct?
amended that.
And then you amended
Oh, you did, you amended that motion.
Amend it to
Yep.
require a letter of,
We're
It was
sending an
what-
enforcement order compelling
Yep.
receipt of an update from a wetland scientist regarding the existing restoration plan and the current site conditions
conditions.
by July 15th.
Yes.
I'll second that, if it hasn't already been.
All right, Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. Buzz?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. Are we good?
April 10th minutes, I think, and then a quick update.
All right.
All right, you're gonna have to hold that thought.
Again, boss?
Actually, you can go ahead, it's just a minute.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 10th, 2024?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. I have a second?
Second.
All right. Jim? Were you
I think I
there?
wasn't here. I think I was not there for that.
I
Okay.
don't have that information in front of me.
I'm gonna abstain, just.
All right.
conscious.
Megan?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Brian?
I'll abstain.
Okay. All right.
Yes, we do need Buzz.
We need Buzz.
I can vote in favor of it. I wouldn't-
It doesn't count as a part of the quorum, because he wasn't on the board for them.
Who, Buzz?
No.
Oh, were you not on the commission yet?
So how many people are actually here? 1, 2, 3, and you all voted for it. I abstained.
So we don't need Buzz?
It's a favorable. He
Let's
can't
just wait
vote
for
on
Buzz, he'll
something.
be back
he
in
doesn't
30
think.
seconds. He'll be back.
Was I on the commission?
But you all
I
ratified it.
can't remember.
It's not based on 7, there's only,
No, it's
One, two.
based on a majority of the commissioners present.
yeah, so there's 1, 2, and you were all affirmative, so I abstained, which means I'm not a negative.
You don't have to.
Brian, you're
just because
on
you-
here.
Just because you,
Was
oh,
that
yes,
the
then,
debate?
yes.
Here we go.
I thought you were voting for the last meeting, that I wasn't.
April 10th.
April 10th.
April 10th, yeah, yes.
I don't even know what day it is.
All right, so you don't abstain?
I don't abstain.
Motion passes. Great.
We're past anyway. Whatever.
Kalina, I just have a quick update. I issued administrative approval of a deck replacement on 16 Pondview Drive. It was a replacement within the existing footprint, very easy, and that's done now. Any questions?
No.
No.
Are we done?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Everyone has to do her little stuff.
You have to read
You
your
have
little
to, you
thing.
have to do your stuff.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, don't
Did
put
you do
that
that
away.
after adjourn?
All right. The next meeting will be held on July, do we have the date again? July 10th, 2024, starting at 6:30 PM. The time is now 10:18. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Make that motion.
Get a second?
Second.
All right, Jim.
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. Buzz.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marilyn.
Yes.
And Brian.
Yes.
Buzz, you have stayed up beyond your bedtime. Be
Me too.
careful
Oh,
going
No,
home.
maybe we'll catch the last quarter.